Good evening and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for Livonia Public Schools Board of Ed for October 13th, 2025. I want to welcome everybody who's watching from home and those out in our audience this evening. So we're going to get started right away, and we will start with item number 1, audience communications. This evening, I do not have any blue slips, so we will go ahead and go on to item number 2, the Committee of the Whole. And I'm happy to announce that we do not have anything under the Committee of the Whole for this evening. So we will go ahead and move on to item 3, the Finance Committee, which I will turn over to Mr. Johnson. Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, President Bradford. We have one item, financial update from Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. Thank you to the board for the opportunity to spend time with you last week, taking a look back at the 24-25 school year. We went over the budget to actual last year, and then we also talked about the budget that was passed by the state and what we know at this time. Tonight, I'm excited to invite our friends, Tim and Lisa from Plant Moran. They were here for a number of weeks this summer performing the annual external audit. So they've brought a few pieces of information for us. We've got a draft audit meeting packet, which brings some highlights from our financial statements, and then we also have a presentation that we're planning to do next week, but hard copies are available in case the board wants to run through that tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa and Tim.
Good evening, Lisa. Good evening, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you. So, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to everybody here tonight. So, my name is Lisa Vargo. I'm a partner at Plant Moran. I'm working in the K-12, and with me is Tim. He's our senior here, so he worked through the whole audit process. So usually my goal here tonight is to pull through some of the deliverables and also talk about the process of the audit. What did we do? What our results were? So first off, before I get started, I want to thank Allison and her department. It is a lot of work, and I think you will see that when I start talking about how much we had to do to be able to get here tonight. So really, to be able to assess and get to an audit, we do have to go through and we have to assess internal controls. So that's first and foremost. So we do come out and we assess internal controls. We do not test them, but we assess them. So our responsibility would be to come out and think about what could go wrong. Are your controls set up enough that we would be able to detect or test a material misstatement? Do you have segregation of duties? Are there controls around assets? If we as auditors find something's wrong or your controls are not properly set up, we have a responsibility as auditors to report that to you. So we do go through and we set up our tests to be able to say that. We also, though, do test internal controls for compliance, and that would be for your single audit, and we'll kind of get to the results of all of that. So I just kind of want to put a context around what we do. So I would say the amount of time that we're out here, we're probably in the field for about 3 weeks. During interim time, we're here about 1 week, and at that point, we're going through a lot of compliance work, a lot of detail work, and then at year end, we're here for about 2 weeks, and that's kind of going through a lot of the year end and the substantive testing. A lot of times people want to know, like, well, what exactly are you guys looking at? We're looking at a lot of different things. So we are looking at original statements, bank statements, we're looking at confirmations from the state, we're looking at student counts, we're looking at audits of student counts, depending on what programs we're testing. We're interviewing people from those departments to ensure that those compliance are properly set. So we do move even beyond just the financial numbers. So we're kind of like all over the place and probably bugging a lot of different people as we're kind of like going through different departments. So a lot kind of like comes through here. So my goal tonight would be to first kind of go through this draft package. And so what we did is we kind of looked at the packages that we produce. I think the financial statements now are up to about over 80 pages, maybe. And so I wanted to extract some of the pages that I thought would be most helpful and relevant to the board. Of course, you're welcome to pull through them, and if you ever have any questions, I welcome anybody to just call me, and I'd be happy to talk through those financial statements. But I wanted to extract what I kind of felt were really relevant, and we can kind of go through here. A very unique situation this year, though, and I do want to point out, normally you would have two deliverables. You'd have the financial statement and you would have the single audit. Of the two, only the financial statements will be finalized by the end of the month. The single audit, all the work's done, and we are able to go over what a draft opinion is going to be. But because the federal government has not issued what we refer to as the compliance supplement, we are not able to finalize that audit yet, the single audit, the federal compliance audit yet. So the state of Michigan's aware of that. The MDE is aware of that. So they are going to give a kind of like a temporary 30-day deferral until they'll accept, hopefully the federal government will issue that compliance supplement. So I just kind of want to point that out because you'll see that that report's going to remain in draft until that federal government can supply that compliance supplement. But all the work's done, and we've been able to issue our opinion on that because they have provided us draft compliance supplement, so we pretty much know what it's going to be. So we've tested to that. Of course, once we get the final compliance supplement, we're going to have to compare them and make sure nothing's changed, but most likely it hasn't. So I know it's crazy right now.
So is this dependent on the federal budget passing, or is this just independent of the federal budget?
It's completely independent of it. It's been in draft even pre all of that.
So normally, in any normal year, because I don't ever remember this happening before.
Normally, so every year there is a new compliance supplement, but normally the Office of Budget will approve it before. The OMB will have it approved before when we kind of come into field work. But it's affected a lot of different industries like HUD. Anybody who has any type of a single audit, it has affected them. But it does not have anything to do with the current budget. It's just the compliance supplement.
Okay. And this is
Yep.
pretty unusual for this to happen, correct? I mean, I don't remember it happening before.
It has happened before, but it's been quite a while.
Okay.
It has been quite a while.
I'm sorry, because I'm sure this is leaving loose strands for you
Oh,
to
yes,
tie up
it's-
all over the state of Michigan.
It's been quite fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's been fun.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank
okay.
you.
No problem. The other thing to point out is there was a new accounting standard this year called GASB 101. So with the help of Allison and her department, she had to go through a lot of work to be able to implement this new standard. What this new standard is that the GASB came down and said that governments had to look at a different way to look at compensated absences. So you had to look at compensated absence now more of a probability factor. So basically that threshold of when you would record an absence got lower. So you had to record almost more typically is when but it doesn't affect your fund balance. So your general fund would not have changed. That would have been more at a governmental level. So that the top level, your governmental fund, that's where that GASB 101 would have changed. But because of the way that your school district accrues your compensated absences, it really did not have much effect at all.
If I had to put it into simple terms too, because that's what you have to
Thank
do with
you.
all of these GASBs too. Our compensated absences are vacation banks, sick banks, PB banks, and how I used to look at it, and it's been updated a little bit, is I think of it as of June 30th, if we were to close up shop, what would we owe employees when we pay out their sick and
Right.
vacation? What have they accrued? So we look at what the provisions are of each one of our collective bargaining agreements, and I want to say it's in the neighborhood of around like $5 million that people would have earned. But now with this new GASB, we had to go in and look at the frequency, how staff use it. So if I was loaded with 12 sick days, but on average I'm using 8 per year, okay, well this is the difference. So it just add a little bit more complexity to that task, but that's generally compensated absences,
Yeah.
is what do we owe employees for their banks, their unused banks.
It's always a nice thing to kind of go through and dust off contracts and
Yeah.
reread them, so.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good exercise, so. Okay, so the first page on here that I kind of want to go over is the independent auditor's report. So I would say out of this package, this is probably the most important piece of information in here. This really is what we are hired to do. The financial statements we prepare, but we prepare with management's information, and that would be a service that we provide. But really what we are hired to do is to prepare an opinion. So I'm happy to report that we are able to provide an unmodified opinion. So that is also referred to as a clean opinion, or the highest level of assurance that we could provide that your financial statements are free of any type of material misstatement. So congratulations. So we have no modifications, and it's a clean report, so that's wonderful. If you flip through the statement of net positions, this would be the statement that we refer to as your government-wide statement. So this would be, the financial statements where we're kind of pulling in all your assets, all your long-term debt, all your liabilities, everything kind of like all pulled up together in one spot. Some highlights just to look at in here is really focusing in on cash. Your net cash, you need to look at that when you kind of compare it with your restricted assets. When you combine those, collectively, you had an increase of about $5.2 million. Overall, your capital assets, you were able to increase the gross capital assets of about $40 million. One thing to point out, that OPEB, that would be for the healthcare, the post-healthcare amount, that is actually an asset. That's a $46 million asset now on the books. So the accounts payable, that amount, that has decreased from last year. Also to point out is your net pension liability. The net pension liability, that decreased about $83 million from last year. So, and we'll get into in the slides a little bit more about the information about the liabilities for the pension and the OPEB, but those are amounts that you really have no control over, and that's information kind of coming in from the state. Also, as you know, you have a new bond, and that's included in here as well, and that is at $36.1 million. On the next page here, this is all your governmental funds. So the first fund here is your general fund. I think this is your operating, the one that's probably the most important, that we'll focus the most time on, and really where we have mostly all of our graphs really are going to focus in on here. This page really focuses on the major funds, or what we deem the most important funds in the district. You can see that there is a new fund in here for the bond fund, which is the bond fund, which would be the 2025 Bond Series 3. In the general fund, your total assets were about at $79.6 million. And then if you look down at your total fund balance, which is over at $31.1 million, you have $28.8 million of that is unassigned. And then there is a planned usage of that at about $1.9 million. And that is based on the subsequent years for the budget. Okay. On the next page here, so this is the comparison of looking at the budgets to where it really falls out into the actual numbers. So this financial statement here is always amazing to me when I come out here, because the accuracy is just very precise. When you look at that, you have $185 million in expenditures, and in total, the variance is only $467,000 favorable. I mean, that is just a mark of very precise budgeting. I mean, it's less than a 1%. So I just always want to commend on that, because it's hard enough to do budgeting within 5%, which I would say would be strong budgeting, but to have it this close is just very commendable. So I don't have much more to say about this financial statement here, except just to point that out, because that's very, very amazing. So great job. The next financial statement, this is the funded project, so this is really part of the general fund. Typically, these typically net to zero, but this fund this year have a little bit of timing differences. So I think it is related to the federal cyber grant, and there was one other federal fund.
Yep, our Filter First grant.
Filter
So
First, yes.
They had, with the cybersecurity grant, which Tim is here for, he was right on it, along with Rebecca Williams, our accountant. We submitted the final cost report for that on May 29th, and as of August 30th, we still hadn't gotten reimbursement for it. So we aren't able to recognize revenue in our financial statements, but we have since received the revenue in the month of September.
And it's timing.
Yep.
It's just all timing.
And same with Filter First was one, other grants run by the state, they reimburse, they do 2 check runs a week, and for the Filter First grant, they're only processing cash requests once a month. So if you miss it, then you're waiting a whole nother month to get reimbursement. So this too is one that we've gotten payment on, but unfortunately wasn't by August 30th.
On the next page, this is a page from our single audit. So as I indicated earlier, this will be the financial statement that cannot be finalized yet, but it is done. So all the testing is done. So I also can report here that the 2 financial statement opinions that are included in the single audit are both also unmodified. So again, highest level of assurance. So to point out, in the single audit, we put 2 opinions in there. One opinion is on compliance. So that means, are you doing everything exactly the way that you are supposed to do, that the federal government tells you that you have to do it? So it is right, it is wrong, there is no materiality, given to us in there. And then the other opinion is internal controls on compliance. So are things set up in order to make sure that things will not go wrong in compliance? Both of those unmodified, highest level of assurance. We did have 2 major programs here. So we had to test 2 different federal programs. So we've tested both IDEA and Title I. So 2 programs, that's a lot of work. So I will tell you, at a lot of my school districts, we do 1 program. So out here, we had to do 2, so that's even more work that Allison and her department had to do this year. So that's a lot. And then with this, in this report right here, you can see all these answers right here where it says no all the way down. This is also reporting to the federal government that we had no findings in material weaknesses, we had no findings in internal controls, we had no findings in SIG deficiencies. So this is all good. This is nice how it should be uploaded to the federal government. And then the question about, is the auditee a qualified low-risk auditee? We are able to answer yes here because you have a 2-year history of being able to have all those no's. If you have a yes, then that changes to being not a low-risk auditee, and then what that means is the auditors need to test even more. So we can test 20% of your federal expenditures. If you answer no, you are not a low risk, you have to test 40%. So you would have to test even more. So, yeah.
And why is it that we had 2? You said some districts only have 1 that need to be audited, and we had 2 that need to be audited?
Yeah, it's just the size of what your CFA, what your schedule of federal awards is, which is the next page. And so it just depends on how much grants you're getting in a year and how much coverage you have to get, and it's a lot of rotation. So, meaning we have to complete a test every single year, and the federal government in any program that you receive more than $750,000 in, you have to rotate those programs every couple years. So the federal government wants to make sure, like, let's say, Title I, if you tested in 1 year and you have no findings, you're good for a couple years, but then you have to test it again. So there's certain things that get up in rotation, but if you have a lot of programs that are over that certain threshold, you will have multiple major programs.
Okay. It being a larger district.
In larger
we are with a lot of
districts.
different programs, it makes sense that we would have more than one.
Yes, yeah, exactly,
All right, thank you.
exactly.
Just speaking to some of the testing that gets done, we largely use our grants for payrolls for staffing. So for IDA, for example, they're, first off, taking a look at our budget, because with our federal grants, we have to submit a spending plan to the state that they review and approve and make sure is in alignment with the grant guidelines. And then they're testing to see, okay, for IDA, we use a large majority for resource room teachers. And so then our auditors are pulling samples. We have to provide a list of all the teachers that are charged to IDA. Then we need to show evidence how we came to those, staff members. So we document that our office works with the Student Services Office to make sure that there haven't been change of assignments for staff members. So then they'll pick samples. So if we charge 20 resource room teachers, maybe they'll pick 3 at random, and then we've got to provide the contracts. So if we charged X amount per dollars, they're going to tie out to make sure that that amount ties to the CBA so that you're not charging something different. If there were things that, and I think like title, will maybe have some invoices there, so they're pulling invoice samples. They're making sure what was our process for reviewing those invoices, and how do we make sure that that's appropriate and aligned with the budget before we charge it to the grant. So a lot of samples that are taken, but lots of detail. And I think that's good reassurance for the taxpayers that when our taxpayers, funds go to these awards, they are being spent the way that they were meant to be spent. And like Lisa said, there is no gray area. If if something was inappropriate, that would be an opinion, that would be a finding, something that they would have to share with the board. So
Yes.
it is obviously something that we strive for, and I think we do have good processes in place to make sure that before anything ever hits the grant, we've got good processes in place to make sure only allowable things are charged to the grant. Some of that too is we don't charge split-funded staff, or I should say staff members that have multiple assignments. We only pick people that are 100% working on an allowable grant function, like Title I. Only 100% interventionist. If it's an interventionist that's a half activities director, half interventionist, no, because God forbid they're spending a little bit more time on this activity than the other time. We'd just like to avoid that, and again, just pick people that are 100% working on one activity. So lots of controls in place, and Plant Moran continues to be good thought partners. So if something new comes up, we always have conversations beforehand to make sure that we're not missing something with that.
So the next portion in here, I just wanted to give we call it a CFA, but it's the Schedule of Expenditure of Federal Awards, just to give the how much federal dollars are included in our single audit. So these would be all the federal dollars that I discussed that we are rotating and we are looking at every single year. And last but not least in this package is what we refer to as the end of audit letter. So I know I talked a lot about controls and a lot about how we did not have any findings. We also have, as I indicated earlier, all this planning that we do. And in the very beginning of the audit, we talked about, like, here's our plan, and we sent the letter out and said, here's where we kind of identified as the risks. Here was our plan. I refer to this as our, end of the audit, or our book end of the audit. This is where if we had any issues, I am required to put this in this letter, even if it's not control related. But if something did not go according to plan, if we did not start on time, or if records were not available, or things, I found a risk that I really didn't think was gonna be a risk, this is where I would be required to put it in to tell the board, like, this did not going according to plan. Even if it was okay, this is where I would be required to put it. But This letter is very standard because everything did go according to plan. So we started when we were supposed to start, we ended when we were supposed to start. We did not have any surprises. Everything that we deemed to be the typical risk was the typical risk that we addressed. And risk is not a bad word, by the way. It's like everybody has risks, right, that we have to come in and we have to look at, and that's just what we have to do as auditors. But our planned audit procedure was executed as we expected it to be. So there is nothing unusual in this letter. It just means that we perform the audit as planned. So I just wanted to include this in here, and this is what we refer to as the end of audit letter. So, this is really what I wanted to cover in this PDF, or this package here. The other handout that we have, and we're ready to cover it if you would like us to, is the graph presentation. So this is what we put together to cover next week for the board meeting. So I'll stop talking right now, and I will let everybody, if they have questions, we can go over that, or we can also cover the graph presentation if you would like to cover what we're gonna cover next week.
Questions first.
No, I don't have any questions. That was very thorough. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great explanations.
I have one, Lisa.
Yes, absolutely.
When we look at the statement of net position, when we talked about the net pension liability,
Yes,
is that the number that's our portion of the I'll call it just the backlog,
yes, that is your portion.
our portion?
This is your portion, yes. The total,
Yeah,
I
it's
actually
like-
have the total here.
I'm not sure I want to hear it.
The total liability is, this year is 30.1 billion, which is down. Last year it was 32.4 billion. But the OPEB, is now an asset, so that's an overfunding. So it's an asset compared to last year, it was a $566 million liability.
Okay.
And OPEB is those retiree health
Yeah.
benefits.
Right.
Yep, and then we know that, the state was charging employees in the basic and MIP plans of 3% for the retiree health, but because it's now fully funded, they've taken that 3% contribution away from employees. Fortunately, we've had a little bit of a shift of that cost to the employer, but, we've budgeted for that, and it's included in our 25-26 budget.
And I remember a few years ago, they were talking about the end date for that payback being like 2038. Are they still looking at that number, or is
I
that
don't know.
changed?
I could look. I'll find that out for
My
you.
guess is it's changed.
It
but-
probably has, but I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I can find out.
Yeah,
Yep.
I just, no rush on that.
Yep,
Lisa.
yeah,
I'd just like to
absolutely.
find out if they're still on schedule or
These are
where
the
they're
things,
at.
though, it seems like when there are funds in the state aid fund, before diverting them elsewhere, put it towards the pension system, get that fully
Right.
funded,
Yes.
and then once that's fully funded, let's have a conversation, so.
Did you say that?
That would be
Yeah.
lovely, wouldn't it?
I know they
That's
did
just-
include in the budget a portion to pay down, but I believe that there is still a significant liability there. For the board, would you like Lisa to walk through?
Crystal has a question.
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, put your,
Yes. On page 13, you talked about just the unassigned fund balance, the 28 million.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about that. That is just unassigned fund balance?
mhm.
So that would
Yeah.
mean that's at the discretion of the board to
Okay.
say, this is available for appropriating, we can use it for something. An assigned fund balance would be things like, the board approved $3 million worth of textbooks in June that we haven't
Yes.
purchased yet. That would be $3 million that's assigned for a given purpose. This is totally unrestricted, so it could be used for whatever the board sees fit.
We've done that with buses.
Yes.
When they may not have come in.
Yes,
And we've carried that
yes.
over, so that's an assigned fund balance.
Okay.
And just speaking, because we're on that page and Lisa hit it, that subsequent year's budget, that's takes it away from the unassigned, but we've had lots of conversations about where we would like the fund balance to be, and that we do have some items that are things that we'd like to spend money on, and so it's a planned use of fund balance. So if we are taking in $150 million, maybe we do have $151 million worth of expenses, so that would be expenses over the revenue that we're bringing in, and that would be covered under that subsequent year's budget. That's assigned fund balance, assigned towards those expenditures. So that's something that we know districts can't do repeatedly, but we're in a window where we've grown our fund balance to a very healthy point, and now, you know, there are certain things that we'd like to do. We're very proud of our collective bargaining agreements that we were able to reach with employees. We're able to do some projects and different athletic investments, some different instructional investments. So these are things obviously that we talk to the board and get your blessing on and include in budgets before we move in that direction.
So do you want to go through the slideshow? Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Can you hit that red button, turn green?
Yep.
Perfect.
There you go. All right. Okay. Well, see, now Tim gets to talk.
Alright. So for that first page that you guys have after the title slide, this table represents the fund level balance for the district for this year. This year's major funds included the Special Education Fund and the 2025 Bond Series 3 Fund. We kind of touched on that a little bit when Lisa was talking. General fund assets were $80 million and the liabilities were $49.6 million for this year. The fund balance decreased $2.2 million from 2024 to $80 million this year. We will have more detailed slides in a couple of slides to talk through that and what those changes were. So significant assets include cash and investments in state receivables for July and August state aid. Significant liabilities include the summer pays for the teachers and due to other governments, plus unearned revenue. Those make up the majority of the assets and liabilities. The fund balance in the 2025 Series 3 fund is restricted for capital expenditures and will decrease over time as the bond proceeds are expended. Assigned fund balances in the general fund represents a portion of fund balance expected to be used in fiscal year 25 and 2026, as budgeted expenditures are initially projected to outpace revenues.
I'll mention, for our community, I know the board knows this, that Series 3 of a 2021 bond, we just sold that in May, so we didn't use much of the proceeds this school year, but we'll definitely be using it for summer 2026 work. We're just finalizing, or not finalizing, using the last of the Series 2 funds, so we'll, probably by the time that these summer projects are wrapped up for 2025, Series 2 will be closed out. So we'll be working with, we reach out to Yo and Yo, who does another audit specifically of the bond funds, so that'll be something coming up here very soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move on to the next slide. This slide is a budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund, excluding funded projects activity. We kind of touched on this a little bit when Lisa was going over the packet, but in our eyes, the best practice for sound budgeting would range from anywhere from 1% to 3% in terms of variances for spending. As you can see on the graph, Livonia was just under 1% in terms of both revenue and expenditures, which we would consider to be outstanding, as Lisa touched on. Another point we wanted to make, and that we will point out at the next meeting, is that almost every single line item on the balance sheet had a positive or favorable variance in terms of which way the revenues and expenditures were swinging. So kudos to the district for that. Revenue landed at about 0.31% of the final budget. Management carefully monitors finances and incorporated expected enrollment declines within the budget to account for this. We'll go to the next slide. This slide presents the combined general fund, which includes the funded project component. General fund balance as a percent of total expenditures is approximately 15%, which is a healthy fund balance in our eyes. From the MSBO, a recommended fund balance is anywhere from 15 to 20%, so Livonia does fall within that range. The statewide average was about 21.86% for as of June 30th, 2023. So as you can see, Livonia was much lower than that, so that would be another kudos to the District of Livonia. General fund revenue, excluding federal revenue, stayed consistent with the prior year, so not a lot of change there. General fund federal revenue did decrease by $6.3 million. That main driver is the lack of ESSER funds in the current year. But general fund expenditures did decrease by $2.5 million from last year as well.
I'm just saying that again, because again, I know you know ESSER grants, those are the grants we got from the pandemic. means to help districts respond to that. And it makes sense that we've moved past the pandemic and now those grants have dried up.
And accordingly, then our expenditures have as well.
Yes.
For those
Correct.
areas.
Yes.
Yep. Consistent with prior years, the district received about 11.7 million in 147C stabilization revenue. That's essentially an in and out to the ORS. There was also a $2.6 million one-time payment of 147C2 this year. That's something that's new this year. There wasn't any last year, but there was 21.5 million in 147C1 in the prior year.
Those are tough ones again, because that's not tough ones. We can account for them, but I'll say inflates both our revenue and expenditures, because we're adding then another $20 million of revenue and expenditures. So if you were looking at the prior year, it's like, what did you possibly increase your revenues and expenditures by 20 million? It's that flow through that's going towards paying down the pension liability.
But I do think for the general public that sees our expenditures at 160 million and the next year 180 million, it's so important to be looking at both the revenue and the expenditure to see that those are commensurate and that really is a flow through, which is not something, if folks are just looking at one or the other, it may look a bit out of whack. So it really is important to continue to educate our community about that.
Perfect. We'll move on to the next slide. This slide shows the revenue for the general fund for the year ended June 30th, 2025. The largest portion of funding comes from the state and makes up about 71.7% of general fund revenues. This includes the state's portion of foundation allowance as well as categorical funding. The next largest component is local revenue of about 36 million. This is comprised primarily of property tax revenue. Other revenue of $10.5 million is represented largely by transfers from other funds and special education funding from Wayne Risa. Enhancement millage revenue was $5.2 million in the current year. This millage runs through 2028. This amount represents Livonia's allocation of those funds for the fiscal year 2025.
I'll just jump in there real quick. As you know, we keep our grants in a separate fund, so we just looked at our schedule of federal awards, and we in total get about $18 million worth of federal grants. So you see this little sliver is the amount of federal revenue that we record in the general fund, which is Medicaid reimbursements that hit the general fund. But just to take a minute, I know there is concern, when we hear that the federal government hasn't passed their budget and what could be the impact on our school district, in particular for special education services. And I would like to assure the community those services are going to continue. And when we look at how special education programs are funded, most of the funding for that comes from the state. We submit a cost report every year to the state, and we get reimbursement. We don't get a full reimbursement from the state for that, but we get a majority of the funding from the state. We also get funding for our Act 18 programs. We're 100% reimbursed by the county. And our community in Wayne County supports a special education millage that funds those programs. So there is not concern that any delay or cuts of the federal government are going to have any immediate impacts on us. Obviously, the IDA grant brings in very important funding for us. We fund a number of our resource room teachers out of that funding. We would be devastated to see it cut, but I want to give our community again reassurance that we have a fund balance for a reason too, and we can have thoughtful conversations in the event that something were to be cut or even reduced, that before any changes would be made to programs, that'd be something that we'd have a conversation with the board, and we would look at our priorities and make sure that we fund the things that we need to be funding.
All right, we'll move on to the next slide. This slide takes the district's expenditures and shows them by object type or where they're being spent at. As you would expect in an organization where people are the biggest resources, the largest components of expenditures are salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits, including healthcare and retirement costs, comprise 88% of the total expenditures. This is consistent with prior year's allocations that we've seen. Note retirement and other employee benefit costs represents 36% of total district expenditures. And now I will pass it on to Lisa.
All right, and I will close us up here. So on the next graph here, just in the summary, so this one is the GASB 6875, just a few more topics here. This again is the pension liability and the OPEB, which is the post-employment health care. As we talked about, these really are just estimate for the school's portion of your liability in your post-employment health care. Overall, as we talked about, the big liability is at $30.1 billion versus $32.4 billion in the prior year. The good news is that the post-employment health care did move to an overfunded asset this year. So who knows what's going to happen with that kind of on a go-forward basis, but there are small swings going back and forth. There's always some type of blending and smoothing that the actuaries do on that. As we talked about, that the districts has a $267 million liability for the pension portion and is showing a $46 million asset for the post-employment healthcare portion. As we talked about, these do not affect the general fund statements. These are only at the top level statements. And I think on the next slide, we like to kind of put what would happen if you just kind of like pull out these, right? Because these are liabilities that you, and an asset now, that you really have no control over, right? Well, I mean, they are your liabilities because they're for your employees, but you don't have control over it, right? And so we, on this slide, have compared the government-wide versus the fund level. So this slide is showing your total assets at the government-wide statement. As I said, the government-wide is pulling all your funds together, all your assets, all your liabilities, everything at the school district level. And then, so in total, that's $553 million. Subtracting out all your liabilities, so all your long-term debt, all your bonds, your compensated absences, any type of leases, although there are no leases here. So any type of long-term commitment that the school district has, kind of subtracting that out. Excluding any type of pension liability, healthcare benefits. So we're trying to just kind of exclude it and kind of like, how does that look like? So when you look at that, you do have a net positive position of $178 million. And we just like to highlight that because when you look at that top level statement, there's that large negative number. And so we just wanted to see what it would look like when you kind of take that level of the net pension and the OPEB out of the equation, and what would that fund balance look like at that level. And then if you look at the fund balance, in totality, you have total assets of about $170 million, less your total liabilities of about $67 million. So your total fund balance as a total school district would be a total of about $102 million. On the final graph, this chart we've just historically have liked to kind of put together, just to kind of give a good visual of kind of what historically, kind of comparing change of foundation allowance, what has been going on with your foundation, your fund balance as a percent of expenditure compared to the statewide average fund balance as a percent of the expenditure. So as we talked about, your percent of expenditure to your fund balance as a percent of expenditure is approximately 15% this year. And that is represented by the blue line. So it stayed pretty consistent with last year, dipped a little bit, but stayed very, very consistent. The statewide average fund balance as a percent of expenditure for 2024 is about 24.7%. The 25 figures have not been released yet. But what I do like to tell people is that includes all districts. So, it's very hard to, what is a district exactly like Livonia? It's kind of hard to say. So that's including charter schools, it's including city of, this Detroit, it's including all schools. I like to just look at it, what's the trend? That's probably the most important aspect of kind of trying to figure out the comparison in here. Not necessarily the number, but just kind of the trend of it. And then the dotted line here is overall the change of foundation allowance. And as we know, after the state passed their budget, that the foundation allowance did go up a little bit, about 400 and
Yep, 462.
462, yes, something like that. Yes, so that was good news. So that foundation allowance is going to go up a little bit. So overall, this graph just kind of gives a little bit of history on here. But I think the takeaway from here is about just how important fund balance is, and about how it is important to have fund balance to be able to have the flexibility depending on what is going to happen between, as we talked about with the federal government, what happened with the state, and being able to have like the flexibility with the timing of the state's budget, and being able to have the ability to weather storms, and to be able to have that flexibility of that fund balance is important. Because there can be ups and downs and a lot of unpredictable factors. And I think that this chart definitely shows that. So with that, I will see if anybody has any additional questions.
Additional questions? Yes, Mrs. Burton.
Not a question, just a statement. Excuse me. As you alluded to, kudos to Allison and to your entire team for being able, year after year, to come within 1% of our budget is absolutely amazing. I don't know that anyone could do that with their own personal home finances, let alone a district this size. And kudos to our employees who play by the rules, who do what they're supposed to do and not otherwise, so that as a district, we can be in a strong financial situation. But that is not lost on us. Many of us were around through 2008, and when finances looked nothing like this. But thank you for being able to do what you're doing. As you said, Lisa, that it does allow us to weather storms and overcome hurdles. It's not lost on us. Thank you.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Anything else?
I'd like to share something. I wanted to obviously echo that as well, and I think we come to almost expect that when we see that variance. As you know, you get that reported to you 4 times a year, twice in a formal amendment form and twice in an update. And so you have that opportunity to see the variance in those expenditures. And not only is it, significantly below 1%, but it is also generally a positive variance. So that's one piece. The other piece I want to point out is to echo what Mrs. Vargo said about the fund balance. Whenever we've talked about this the past several years, we've often looked back to 2008, 2012 as an example of why that's important. We no longer need to do that because of the position the state put us in this year. So because the legislature did not do their job and pass a budget according to Public Act 160, which said they needed to have a budget by July 1st. They also did not have one by October 1st, which was the final financial deadline. So when that happened, we knew in the interim of that period of time, there were districts across this state borrowing money and paying significant interest on that in order to make payroll, because we do not get an August state aid payment, we do not get a September state aid payment, and we don't get October until October 20th. So several years ago, we were in a position where we had to borrow in order to make payroll and pay interest on that. This year, districts were forced to do that because of the inaction of the state legislature and the governor. So in the past, we've talked about what sounded like many years ago, and I think sometimes that maybe loses its impact for people to say, well, we haven't had those kind of storms in a long time that we've had to weather, or do we really need that because that hasn't happened currently. Well, it's 2025 and it happened this year. And we saw colleagues across the state doing that. We saw boards across the state making a decision about whether or not they could continue universal meals at the cost of several $100,000 a month. And districts that announced to their community they could not do that because they didn't have the fund balance and the state didn't do their job. So I just want to emphasize that the financial stewardship, as you know, is one of our core 4 priorities. And it really is a collective effort of our board, our district administration, And I believe it's something that our community values because we have never wavered from the importance of being extraordinary financial stewards. And this year was a time when we could staff our schools with confidence because we did have that fund balance, although we did not know what the foundation allowance would be, what the funding for at-risk, special education, transportation, et cetera would be. We were able to maintain our staffing. We were able to meet the needs of our children, continue to add security, safety, mental health, without knowing if any of that was going to be part of the state budget. And the reason I share that is because the fund balance allowed us to do that. Had we not had that, or information from the state, we would have had to make very difficult decisions that now with the decisions being made, you can't all of a sudden start hiring people and dividing classes up in October and November. So districts had to make those difficult decisions. Because of our fund balance, we were able to meet all of the obligations of our new collective bargaining agreements, which we are very proud of, as well as meet the needs of our students and our schools. So that is a lot to be proud of. And I know I'm so grateful for the work of this Board of Education, your steadfast commitment to that, because it does require us to be sometimes somewhat conservative in where we head. And we believe that's very, very appropriate. And so we are happy to have a budget now, but we want to be clear that we did do our job. We had our budget in place by June 30th. And thankfully, the fund balance allowed us to maintain stability for our staff and most importantly, our students.
Anything else? Nothing? Thank you for being here.
No problem. It's
Yes,
great to be
thank
here.
you
Great
so much
information.
for
We
being here
appreciate it
this
very
evening.
much, yes.
Thank you for continuing to partner with us.
Yep.
Tim, we'll see you next week
Yes.
for the regular meeting?
Yes, you will.
All right, thank
All
you
right.
to you and your team for all of your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Good evening.
Your work, Allison. Okay, President Bradford, that concludes finance.
Why, thank you very much. Awesome. We are going to go on to item 4, the Operations Committee, and I will be turning it over to Mrs. Burton.
Thank you very much, President Bradford. Excuse me, thank you very much, President Bradford. And the first item under operations is 4A, the purchase of PA and classroom audio. We'll hear from Mr. Green and Mr. Green and Mr. Clam.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. So, it's great that operations gets to go next for some great agenda items, but as you just noticed, our financial house is in order, which is going to allow everything else tonight to
Yep.
build upon that. So that's sometimes, just looking at that big picture is important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to welcome, I have a lot of friends that are joining me this evening, and here's one of them right here. This is Mr. Tim Clanner, our Administrator of Information and Instructional Technology. We'd like to highlight a recommendation for the Board of Education for upgrading our district-wide public address and classroom sound systems. We're proposing to replace our current aging CareHawk and TeachLogic systems with Audio Enhancement's Epic platform. As you heard a little bit before on this, and you probably read in the memo, it's a fully integrated solution that combines our PA, classroom audio, emergency alerts, and bell scheduling. I had a chance to look at this in person at our Early Childhood Center. This upgrade will improve audio clarity, enhance safety features, and allow for centralized control and instant communication across the district. So the recommended vendor after a public bid is VSC of Novi, Michigan, with a bid of $4,141,312, including a $200,000 contingency. While VSC was not the lowest bidder, VSC did meet the design requirements and has a strong track record with our previous bond projects. And you'll see in your packet tonight the rationale for that. This initiative will be funded through the 2021 bond and represents a major step in modernizing our communication infrastructure. So that's the overview. The background is also included in the documentation, and we'd like to bring this forward next week for a vote, if there's any questions.
All righty. And thank you for providing a lot of this information for us to look at ahead of
Absolutely.
the meeting, so we can come in informed already.
Absolutely.
So, are there questions or comments on this item? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. Mr. Green, when we did the, I'm going back to the 2013 bond, We did a lot of upgrading on the PA systems at that time, did we not?
Yes, we replaced the PA system and classroom audio just like we're doing now. So that was in 2014.
Yeah, we're
I believe.
talking 11 years ago.
Yes,
So now the technology is even better than it was back then, I presume?
yes, significantly.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments or questions?
Mr. Klein, can you talk just a little bit about the functionality of the master screen in the office and the ability to pinpoint communications more directly with classrooms and also the safety features that are part of the microphone system?
Yes, yes. I don't know if any of you have noticed at LECC, we do have this system in place there. And in the office, there's a 24-inch touchscreen that has a map of the building, so it's got all the classrooms shown. And even though a lot of those classrooms are pre-programmed into groups or whatever that you can choose from, you can just touch a room on the screen and call into that room, or touch several rooms and call into them. So very intuitive and easy for people to access and change as classrooms change or groupings of classrooms change. And then also the classrooms have call buttons that they can call down to the office. It lights up on the screen, shows them which room it is. The teachers wear a lanyard for their classroom audio system that also has emergency buttons on it. So if they press them, it will contact the office. The room lights up red. It doesn't matter which room they're in. It will follow them and be able to figure out where they are. And in this system, we'll also be putting the sensors that are needed throughout the building, so that no matter where the teacher is, if they're out in the hallway and they press the buttons, it will triangulate their location and show it in red in the hallway or wherever they happen to be when they make a call for help. So I'm trying to think, were there other items that I might be missing that you can think of?
No, but during those periods of time, then the sound remains on without notification to those around them. So
Right.
if there was perhaps an altercation taking place or an intruder, that conversation could be heard in the office without knowledge and awareness of the others around them.
Typically, when the office calls into the classroom, there's a pre-tone that comes out before the office can talk and then listen back in. But when that button's pushed, it initiates the audio so that the office can listen to what's going on or talk to them if needed without notifying anybody in the classroom. Might tip them off that somebody is listening, so.
What was impressive when, I know Ms. Keats had a chance first, and then I had a chance later on to take a look at the system at the Early Childhood Center. One of the things that went in our previous purchase, sometimes the volume levels and the quality from certain classrooms weren't as high quality as we'd like. And can you explain why that sound quality is phenomenal?
Yeah, so this system's completely digital, so the units in the classrooms are connected via PoE or power over Ethernet through a regular Ethernet connection. And then the classroom audio systems are of a little higher quality, plus we're also replacing all the speakers at the same time. So this is one of those items that's a life safety system for the building. So we need to make sure that when we put this in, we're not affecting the existing system. So the new system will have to go in kind of at the same time that the old system is still up and running, and it'll have to be tested, and then we cut over like on a weekend, or we'll do one building at a time. But that a little more than answers your question, but I went on a tangent.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes. Mr. Klein, is there a lot of maintenance that will have to be done, like, I don't know, I want to say
Yeah.
maintenance on the equipment, and how will that work?
Not so much maintenance on the equipment, but the most common thing we see with these systems is changing of bell schedules and changing of where groupings of classrooms are and things like that normally would have required some back-end programming to do. But this system is really intuitive and easy to use, so the buildings and principals or secretaries should be able to easily program and schedule days that are different than other days and things like that a lot more easily than they have in the past with the existing system.
And one other question, follow-up. How, is there a warranty on the equipment, and how long do we expect this to last? I mean, how long, since I see their last one was about, 10 years?
11, yeah. So it's the warranty typically is 5 years
Okay.
on these types of systems. Easily, though, I think when we do our planning, our 10-year planning, we assume 10 years on
Okay.
these types of systems. So that's what we would be looking to get out of it at a minimum.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
So in the case of there being an altercation and you turn the listening on, does that automatically record, or is there a way to, is the recording involved, or is it just playing on the audio?
I can check and get back with that. I don't believe there's any way to record it. I know it's not something that we've done standard. I guess the answer would be yes, there's probably always a way to do it.
Right.
If that's the need that's required, but it's not something we've set up currently
Okay.
with LECC, but I'll look into it and get back with you on that.
Mr. Johnson?
One last question. When would we start this project, Tim, and how long do you think it would take to install?
We would start it, I would anticipate, depending on availability of the equipment and delivery and things like that, I would hope to start it before Christmas. That would be, and I think we would start with probably smaller buildings to test it out, make sure the process is in place, and then work our way through. It is going to be a longer process because we are doing one building at a time, and we do have to keep the existing system up and then do a cutover and testing and all that. So it could take up to probably a year to complete. But if we find we're moving along very quickly and maybe we can finish it up this summer, that'd be great, because if we can get into some of the bigger buildings near the end and do those during the summer where we're not impacting the, classes and things that are on, because right now we do in second shift. So they're only able to work from, 4 till 10 or 11 at night. So the summer will help finish things up. Hopefully, that's kind of the goal.
Okay. Super, thanks.
Mrs. Frank?
This might be a question for Mrs. Keats, but are teachers at the ECC, are they willing to wear, it's an investment, are their teachers and staff willing to wear the lanyards? Have they been wearing them? Is it consistent?
Yeah, the existing system has a microphone lanyard that they wear already. So most of the teachers have been using that in their classrooms. And we know that they are because they're still contacting us when they have issues and need things fixed. And that's a popular item to request help with, so.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Clan, this is, the microphone system sounds like the ones that, going back 10 or 15 years, we had these in classrooms only when we had hearing impaired students. And that, then the technology followed the student in one classroom to the next. So this now is basically, from what I'm hearing, is available to all of our students.
Yes, yes.
So it's,
And even hearing impaired with special equipment, these systems can tie into that equipment directly so that they can hear it through earpieces and things like that if they need to at the same time, if they need a little more amplifications than, say, the rest of the classroom gets.
that's excellent. 'Cause those of us who've even been in classrooms for parent-teacher conferences or open house or those types of events, it's amazing how, without being overpowering at all, it's just so much easier to hear when that amplification system is consistent throughout the room. Yeah.
Yep.
Are there any other features that you'd like to point out to us that are different or that are enhanced from our previous system? Because we thought that was just the coolest thing in the world 10 years ago.
Tones.
Tones, oh yeah.
New tones. Principals and cabinet, we're excited to hear about that. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about that, Tim?
Yeah, just that the existing system had a lot of tones, but honestly, there were probably 3 that that you would realistically use in the
Okay.
schools for bells or the pre-tone when you would make an announcement, things like that. So this system has a lot of options and good quality options, and gives us the flexibility to easily import and create our own and add to it as we go, so.
I think
That's-
one of the things, you mentioned, and just so you may be able to picture how this would help, but when Mr. Clan talked about preparing groups, if you imagine an elementary school and you're calling students down for an assembly, you used to have to, the entire school heard you call down first grade, and then second grade, and then third grade. And so you can have a grouping in a cluster of just the 4 first grade rooms and contact them to head out to recess or to come down to the lunchroom. And you can do that with a grouping in a hallway at a secondary school, or however you wanted to group those. You can also, just using the touch screen, make announcements to, rather than one classroom at a time, multiple classrooms that you've chosen or that you've already grouped. And I know that sounds simplistic, but we are very conscious of interruption and disruption in the classroom. And so you think long and hard as an administrator, as a secretary, about doing all calls is what we would utilize. And so the ability to pinpoint that so easily for the office staff, for the administration is really a plus. The other thing is now that we have a district license for music use at the fields to go with the lights, we are able to use that. There are principals who enjoy perhaps playing a little music or a song during passing time, something that the kids can enjoy. And maybe rather than just the typical tones, they may play a song and that would run during passing time. And because we have that license, they're able to easily integrate that into the PA system as well. So each of these may sound like small pieces, but they're all part of a very enhanced system. As we've shared this with administrators, they're very much looking forward to these options.
And I know one of the things, Tim, that you mentioned in the process is our estimated projections for the budget on this came in well under, which was good news. Is Plant Moran still here? So they can hear that? But that was great news.
And I'll also say the EPIC system is, like you've said, it's excellent quality, it's a solid system, but it's also something that's very easily expandable, and they're very security minded. So there's a lot of additional features in the future that if we decide we want to add, that we could bring into the system, including integration with being able to do the building lockdowns and have it connect to the door access system, and signage that can alert for lockdowns and things like that in the hallways and the classrooms. And there's any number of things, and they're updating and changing that frequently. So we'll always have that option as we move forward as well.
Okay, and kind of along that line, our phone system, I know, ties in, like if someone hits 911, our police department will know what building and what room that call is coming from. So that's really separate and apart totally from the system that we're talking about here.
Yeah, you're talking about the E911 system, where if somebody makes a call, the police can see exactly which building and which classroom they're calling from.
Right, so that's a completely different
Yes.
layer of security that we have going.
Yeah, the phone system will be connected and is connected to the PA system, in that you can pick up a phone and dial a certain number and be able to make an announcement from any phone in the building. But
Okay.
again, the 911 piece is a separate system.
Okay, all right. And it's great for folks to know that there are just so many different levels of security. I mean, I know when I've been asked about it, I've told folks there are levels of security that everyone knows about, levels of security that other folks don't know about, that we're not even aware of the details of, and that's intentional.
Yep.
Because if everyone knew all of the security plans, they wouldn't be as secure.
Yeah.
So,
And it's all about layers, creating layers of security.
but this is great that I love that for whatever may be going on, whether it's a student health incident, whether for a myriad of reasons it could be, that if a staff member is to hit that button, the office has complete audio as to what's happening. You got immediate backup then without them needing to redirect their attention away from the student or the situation at hand. So, all right. Any other questions or comments?
We'll go to a
Alright.
vote next week.
Yes, absolutely. We'll put this on the agenda for a vote next week. The next item on our agenda is item 4B, purchase of the IT network server.
My same friend's going to stay with me
I think
here.
so.
As you can tell, you pick your friends wisely, and they help. We'd like to present a recommendation to the Board of Education for the purchase of a new server hardware for the district's data center, located not far from where we are having this meeting right now. These servers will be housed in the administrative building and configured as a clustered system to replace our aging infrastructure. They're critical to our maintaining of core services like authentication, network management, and data storage, as well as supporting operations such as door access, printing, thermostat control, and backups. The current hardware is nearing end-of-life support, and this upgrade will ensure continued reliability and vendor support. The proposed purchase is from CDWG for $125,550 using REMC bid pricing and funded through the district's technology fund. This would be required to be voted on next week as well. I will say before Tim gets into the Q&A section on this, I had the opportunity for Ryan and Tim to take me on a tour of this because I like to see what I'm going to actually talk about and know a little bit more. And besides just lights flashing and all these other things, I was amazed by the historical differential in the servers in their size from 5 to 7 years ago as opposed to today, and the explanation of our various backups that we have in this district. I think we've talked last year about how great the team was when we needed them, and this is just another, talk about layers of protection, another proactive way to make sure that our back-end IT support and our command center here is kept up and taken care of.
Alrighty, comments and questions? Comments and questions from anybody? And again, same basic question, Mr. Klein, can you tell us what's different about this system than our previous system?
Yeah, so typically, with any server hardware that we purchase in the district, the most warranty or support you're gonna get typically is about 5 years on it. You can try to buy extended support after that, but it gets extremely expensive. So what we like to do typically is, at this point, we'll replace the equipment that we have currently running, and that equipment, which will be out of support but still functional, we will take apart and move to a B site that we have in the district outside of this building, and that will run as a backup, so that if ever there were some sort of major issue, we could, in this building or with this system, we could transfer over to that other one and try to keep as many of the systems up and running as possible.
Excellent.
So that's one of the key benefits, I think, to doing this at this point, in addition to the fact that you really don't want to be running hardware that's not supported as your primary system, especially since this is running a lot of the critical systems in the district. So we've transitioned to some level in the last 11 years since we made a big purchase of server equipment, and then another one 5 years ago, smaller. It's partially the increase in technology and the ability to fit more into smaller spaces that we've seen, such as the decrease that Bill saw in the size of the equipment and the footprint of the equipment that we're using. Part of that also is that we typically are now more of kind of a hybrid system. We're hosting some systems online through any of the online hosting companies that we use. So we don't want to be completely in-house with servers, and we don't want to be completely web-based. So that hybrid system right now is kind of the best place to be. You can get the best of both worlds. Plus, that gives you another place to store and back things up, in addition to the servers, and then our backup, like our B site and any kind of external drives that we use to back up equipment or backup data. We're also able to do some backup online as well. So it comes back to kind of what we were talking with Bill about as far as our philosophy when it comes to backing up, making sure there's offsite backup, that you've got multiple media types that you're using, and that you have at least 3 copies of all your data.
Excellent, okay. Other comments or questions? Nope. All right, and we will put this on the agenda then for a vote next week. Correct, Mr. Green?
That is correct, thank
Okay.
you. And Mr. Clant, thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
here this evening and taking time out of your evening to, really give the background information that I could not properly articulate to the level that
You would have done
do.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I have ChatGPT ready if you
Yeah.
fell ill tonight, but other than that, I appreciate you very much.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
All righty. And Mr. Green's not going anywhere. Next item, item C, is our 2026 bond preview with French & Associates Architects.
Well, I have some other friends in the audience tonight that have been waiting patiently, and I'd like to introduce this item. We've invited Brian Weber for Plant Moran Real Point and Amy from French Associates to present the design, development, and budget documents for the 2026 phase of the bond program. Their presentation will provide the board with an overview of the current design process, progress, budget considerations, and some of our goals. This is a big milestone, as you know, as we get prepared for future bond work in the summer that is coming quick. It's coming quick. So welcome, Amy and Brian.
Thanks, everyone, for having us back.
Thank you.
You want me to start with?
Do we have our presentation? I think we have a
Oh,
slide.
perfect.
There it is. All right, here it is. Technology is
Our
ready to
final
roll.
summer,
Final summer.
our final
phase
summer of
5.
bond
Isn't
work.
that amazing?
How about that? This is it. We're bringing it home.
The last 3 buildings. So everybody should have a packet nearby them, so you can look in a little bit more detail, since sometimes it's hard to see all the writing on the screen. We're gonna start at Garfield, so if we wanna flip to slide 3. Oh, do I have? Here we go. Perfect. So the Garfield building, as you know, is a special education building that we're renovating. So we don't have the typical like learning library media center scope, but we do have some specialty rooms that they've requested to be renovated. So on the far left, you'll see that they want to expand 2 classrooms to create the community food pantry. So that will house all their food goods and coolers and freezers. And then across the hall, which is in the red, will be the community clothing room, so that will be able to house all their garments that are for the community. So those are located at the end, so easy access for the community to visit the building. Typical of the scope, we do have kitchen work, so we'll see that on the next slide here. But other than that, we have door replacements like other projects, so getting rid of any knobs, upgrading any doors that have been damaged or are just, past their lifespan. All the toilet rooms will get the epoxy flooring, so they'll be cleaned up, help with that aesthetics and the smells, and painting as needed. The big component at Garfield is replacing all the exterior windows. So those windows have hit their lifespan, so those windows would be replaced as part of this project, as well as adding air conditioning to all the rooms. So those kind of go hand in hand. A lot of the units will go right in front of an extra window, and the louver will be into the window opening. So that allows for less brickwork on the exterior as well. So it's kind of a little bit hand in hand there.
So you may recall when we first did the renovations, the windows were newer. They weren't new, but they were newer compared to other schools. So we did not replace them at that time. So this is a significant piece of this project, and we'll bring it up to the level of our other schools that have had that replacement happen.
One thing also to interject, to get a little into the weeds, with the air conditioning, the building control system, this was one of the original buildings that also did not get digital temperature controls throughout the whole building, so this is one that still runs on a pneumatic system, which is the older system. It's a big milestone to get this building up and integrated with everything else, so it can be monitored remotely from central office with Mr. Roberts and his team. So another one that it doesn't really show up well on paper, but it will be a big lift in the field to get in every nook and cranny to upgrade all the temperature controls as well.
Another focus, if we go back, on the blue kind of like center page is the baking and the cooking classrooms. They're kind of side by side. The cooking classroom to the right is pretty well set up, but they need some more storage. But then the baking room needed quite a bit of reconfiguration, so we're making that a better setup for the students to learn how to bake and actually prep things in that space. So that's a big focus on this building. Down in the center, they're just off of the instructional materials room where the workroom currently is. We're splitting that to create a small office and reconfiguring that workroom to be more functional with today's usage. And then the staff lounge gets a little bit of a refresh with how the casework is set up in there to make that more functional, especially for staff, so it makes it quicker to heat up their meals and cook between classes. The front office, we made a couple of changes up there because we added some air conditioning units that kind of pushed around the copier, so that upgrades a couple pieces of casework there. So that's generally the overall building. We'll now flip to the next slide, which is the kitchen. So this kitchen was in great shape, but it was originally built for younger students, so we wanted to upgrade it to be more functional for the older students. So we're going to raise up the existing coiling grill. It's pretty low, and then reconfigure that actual serving line so that's more functional for those students. Other than that, just some minor pieces of equipment will get updated, faucets and hardware in there. So the finishes in there stay the same. The ceiling was in great shape. The flooring's quarry tile, so that's great as well. Maybe a little bit of paint here and there, but otherwise that kitchen's pretty functional. Now on to
Yeah, before we continue on with Nijiro, I know all of you know all this already, how our processes look, but for those that are maybe watching tonight, this isn't something that Amy and Brian just kind of bring here to the board and say, this is what we think Garfield should look like. These, as you know, this is months in the process, many visits, many meetings, many conversations with building leadership, coordinators as needed, central office staff, and a lot of feedback, a lot of imagination, and so this is a great way to see all of that work, but it's months and months of discussions and reviews. So I know you know that, but sometimes it's just a good reminder that this doesn't just happen magically with your sweet software that you have.
And Garfield we originally tried to pull it forward in the program, but because of the uniqueness of that building, we've kind of touched that building quite a few times. And we've met with Lauren and her staff, and just to make sure it's everything that we're doing is right for that student population. We'll go into Nijiro. So this is the Japanese immersion school. So this building really had some minimal work. We've got the classroom air conditioning upgrades as well. Right now they just have those temporary units. So all the rooms will now have permanent air conditioning, as well as the multi-purpose space and the LMC. So the kitchen as well, because the kitchen has got some cooling issues as it sits today. So that's great news. And then all the doors that are knobs, same thing, will be replaced. Any doors that are in poor condition will be upgraded to new doors. Bathrooms, same thing. We'll add the epoxy flooring to all the bathrooms. There's less bathrooms in this building than typical, so that's all the orange spaces. And then our big focus will be the LMC and the kitchen, but we do have some work in the art room. So the art room used to be the music room. They've kind of swapped, spaces throughout the years, so we're going to make that more functional. It's going to have VCT floor, a double sink to make it easier for her to clean and use materials, and that room will function more as an art room permanently now.
That's next to the boiler room, so if you look in the top right-hand corner and you see a dark blue rectangle there, that is where the art room is located.
It's called classroom?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the art room.
Yep. We'll flip to the next page. Similarly to Garfield, this kitchen was in pretty good condition. So just a couple of functionality upgrades. The coiling doors here worked fine, so we're not going to touch those, but the serving line itself was old laminate casework, so we're going to upgrade that to the stainless steel movable pieces that are more cleanable, more functionable. But the layout of this line is kind of backwards to the other ones, but when working with Pat, that works really well for how they function today, so they just wanted to keep it as is. We've got a couple pieces of equipment that currently have to be in the PTA room because of the overheating in the kitchen, so we're going to be able to move those back now that we're going to air condition it properly. And we're adding a additional convection oven, a hood to this space, so that's a big lift because you gotta, it takes up quite a bit of space, so you'll see that on the kind of middle of the space. And then the other big item is adding a prep sink. So that sink will be used for prep only. Right now they don't have a specific prep sink, they have a hand sink in the 3 compartment. So that will help the functionality of the kitchen. Move to the next slide. As most of you probably know, the LMC is dead center in this building, but it's open also, so nothing's really closed off. We maintained that. We'll also creating some barriers that will differentiate the space and give us those components like the other buildings. So just a reminder, every building that we've touched so far, the goal was to get a space for the books, a space for the flexible classroom, the Idea Factory to be nearby, and then obviously the LMC specialist to have an office and a workroom. So those components are all in this space. That we removed an office that was in the lower left, so that we opened that up. We kept the boundary walls to the corridor, and then we added some little wing walls at the bottom that are low height, so they'll be about the same height as the bookshelves, but it'll kind of give some boundaries. So if the bookshelves are all movable, so as the LMC specialist works in that space, if they want to move them around, they still have their defined space. And the carpeting in this space will also help really define the difference of the usage. So when I come back next you'll see the wonderful fly-through presentation with that. So they'll give you a little bit more of the visual.
That's December, I believe, right?
Yes. So that would be the exciting one that we all just could go, ooh, ah.
Just to interject on this one from the lens of our partners at Clark Construction as well. Although it's the last three, it will be the lightest from a quantity. We keep presenting with some challenges here. This LMC is right in the middle of the building. So logistics-wise, we're already talking. It's not just a matter of French and our team talking with the staff. Clark Construction's also walking the site, discussing logistics, and they're putting bid packages out there to notify contractors that, hey, we have a tight window here, a lot of work to do. And every building so far, we've been isolated ourselves with a 1 hour construction wall. It's gonna be a challenge, likely not possible in this building. So we understand that there will be a lot of work in a little bit of time. So just everybody understanding that thought is also happening right now. It's just not a matter of we design something great. We're also thinking logistics and schedules is also built into this too.
Yeah, there really is minimal like constructability items within the LMC, so hopefully that helps with the speed of the construction. We're not, building grand walls. We're really not tearing down much either. So it's more of a aesthetic refresh and separation of the spaces.
Mrs. Bradford?
Thank you. I was looking at that flex space then, they won't have like a nano wall or
No.
anything because there's just not any walls anywhere, even like to the right or left of that flex space. Isn't it a half wall or something? Is it?
It's like a 7'8" wall, so it's
Okay.
pretty full
Yeah.
height,
Yeah.
above a door.
Okay, I'm trying to picture it because I know there's,
That's-
it's
more than
open.
halfway.
It's
Yeah.
more than halfway.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay,
That
but
size
they
of
won't
We're
need.
actually adding a little bit on the back end
Yes,
of it to
between-
give it a little bit more height.
Yeah, between the Idea Factory and the flex space,
Oh,
we are
they'll be a
adding that
little
Going a little
higher.
bit higher.
to help with the sound, so it's
Okay,
not as
but
bad between
there
those.
won't need, they
It's
won't need
not
the
open like
wall
the
or
LMC
anything.
section.
Okay.
In the flex space, there are walls along the side.
Oh, okay.
It just doesn't, they don't go all the way up to the high ceiling.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Okay. I'm trying to picture it. I've been in there a million times, but I know the LMC is
Yeah.
really open.
Yes.
Open.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if you've been to Franklin with those sliding fabric walls.
walls. Yeah.
We're looking at putting those between the flex space and the LMC so that it can be a visual barrier
Oh,
if
that would be
needed.
nice.
You'd still have some sound transmission, but it would give that visual.
Okay, that'd be nice, I think.
And then along that line, is that a complete wall between the Idea Factory and the flex space?
So it won't go all the way up to deck, but it will go to the ceiling of the flex space. So the flex space ceiling is going to tier up.
Uh-huh.
It will go to that ceiling. So there'll
Okay.
still be some sound that could go over top of the ceiling and come through.
Okay,
So it's not completely just because of code restrictions, but it's as close as we
okay.
can get.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, no problem.
And I know as we go through these, I want to make sure, as Mr. Francis, he has style. We all know that. I don't. So for all color designs, I have the superintendent and members of cabinet to help me with that. So you don't have to have any follow-up questions on that, okay? It's taken care of, okay?
All right, any other questions and comments on Nichiro? No?
And then this is just a quick, to give you a sneak peek.
Nice.
Kind of the Japanese elements that we're integrating. So we have these cranes that are the origami cranes that we're trying to bring into the space. And then there's some pop through of these lantern style lights. So we're trying to integrate the culture into that space.
That's nice.
And off to Webster, our final building for Phase 5. Webster's also a unique building usage since it has the gifted and talented and as the special education program. So trying to work with the staff there, we've had thorough conversations to try and make sure the building functions, and we're thinking about the future as well, so kind of keeping it flexible. Similarly to the other buildings, all the toilet rooms will get that epoxy flooring and refresh of paint. All the toilet rooms in the classrooms right now and workrooms have those old laminate doors that are fun, funky colors. Those will be replaced with wood doors to match the rest of the building.
The Easter egg doors.
Yes.
Pastels were in. This building was already upgraded for air conditioning, so they don't have that big lift this summer. We do have 2 rooms off the LMC that do get an upgrade for their air conditioning units to help with sound, but the rest of the building has been upgraded and is running efficiently. We have, at this building, we have an OT room, one OT room over on the very far right that will get upgraded to bring in some calming colors, the rubber flooring, some tactile surfaces, to be more functional as an actual OT room. That will be the main room of the building. They do have some secondary ones that we will leave flexible. So this room will be set up specifically for that sensory and OT room. And then across the hall, we have what we're calling the basic skills room, which is where they want to set up a room similar to the ECC, where it helps kids learn baking and cooking skills in a controlled environment. So that we'll have like a big island that they can roll out dough and you do the little baking exercises. So that will have that usage for the space that currently is kind of a hodgepodge of casework and other items that need to be cleaned up. And then right next to that on the green is the specialty room that the kids use their trikes in. So we're going to put some rubber flooring in there. We're also going to make it really flexible so that if they want to project some fun activities onto a screen, they'll have a big whiteboard similar to the ECC that they can do those fun activities on. So it'll be a little bit more functional and cleaned up space. Front office wise, we are doing a little bit of work in the building workroom to make that functional for the copier location, and then some new carpet and paint to brighten that space up for the staff. The kitchen here, if you've been to Coolidge, it'll be very similar to Coolidge, so kind of like a mirror image. So this one has one of those step down floors. We're going to infill it, so it's all one level, more functional for everybody. Unfortunately, they do lose that little bathroom to make this space more functional for the staff. That helps us get the additional prep area, additional coolers, and then the functionality of the serving line. So that serving line, similar to Coolidge, they'll enter off of the corridor and they'll kind of do an upside down L and back into the cafeteria multipurpose space.
The infill here is a really important element. It's I don't want to say it's dangerous, but it is a challenge for the people it's a tight area, and then there's a considerable step down in the area where they're moving back and forth throughout that section. I'm always a bit puzzled at the original design there. We'll just leave it at that. But I believe that the flow will not only be much better, but the functionality in that space. And we had a chance to talk to the folks who work in that area each day, and that will be a welcome change, both for utilitarian purposes, but also really for safety of a workplace.
And this building already had an existing walk-in freezer cooler, so that just remains. Pat says it's working good, so we have left that. So that's no additional cost there, which is great. And then we'll head over to the LMC. This is also similar to Coolidge in the layout, kind of a mirrored image. Similar scope here of creating a flex space off to the left and then creating the Idea Factory off to the right. A little different than Coolidge, because Coolidge we use that center kind of orange space. But here we had the opportunity to use the larger space. So that was great. It'll be just a normal size classroom here for the flex space. And then in that center orange area, that's going to be an open office area for a bunch of the ancillary staff that is currently in the flex space. They have a lot of, they have 4 desks that will come into that space, and then they have quite a bit of storage for their work. So that will go into a current office, and they'll kind of differentiate those spaces. The media center, which is the light blue at the top, that will be open bookcases, and flexible seating, very similar to Coolidge in that, very flexible. And then here's a preview of the layout. the staff was looking for kind of a naturey feel and light and fun because we're integrating two different types of student usage. So we wanted to kind of use some creative elements with lighting and acoustics. Those are all acoustical too. And then this is just a refresh on the flooring and anywhere if we have a couple rooms that have tile, but very few in this round. Just a refresh on what those rooms will get. Colors may vary once we get into those. Any questions?
Questions, comments from our duty?
Wow, I can't believe we're already there.
I can fulfill the budgetary portion of this presentation. So throughout the process, we have a schematic design estimate and a design development estimate, once again, working on our team Clark. So we've gone through those two exercises, adapted scope throughout, just as Amy had mentioned, we had to give it the staff a few times to hone in on programming, but all in, we're about $10 million we're anticipating for these three buildings that'll be presented once.
All three.
So this is currently out to bid with contractors. Bids are expected the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be in November with recommendations for contractors for this work.
Excellent. All right. Questions, comments on this?
When we think of these three buildings, I think these three buildings, the first thing that comes to my mind are 3 points of pride for our school district and the uniqueness of each of those buildings and what, as we finish up our 2025 work through our punch list, and we were just out at Churchill today and it's looking fabulous. We are now cycling into 2026, and so the other role that happens in this work, as you know, is really hitting our timelines and preparing the staff. As Amy said, it's a quote opportunity for staff to think about what they have in their closets and in their classrooms and purge a little bit. We feel that's a theme, right? But it's also an opportunity to communicate to them about their timeline for their media center and to really make them feel at ease, because it is it's a big change for a building to go through a bond, not only at the preparation stage, but when it happens and when you come out of a bond. So one of the things that's been established with Mr. Francis and the teams in the last many cycles is that repetition breeds comfort, and it breeds the ability to be successful and to launch. And so this is very exciting. It's emotional. When I was at Garfield, thinking about what former elementary school and Nijiiro with its unique engineering design from when it was Taylor Elementary, and then now Webster, formerly Tyler, and just the dual programming brings all new opportunities, and so it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So thank you for that great presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Great work.
Thank you,
Next
Brian.
couple- 2 months.
2 months. It'll be here in a minute.
Bye, Amy. Have a nice night.
Brian is not allowed to go home yet.
No.
Oh, here he is.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you all.
Alrighty, the next item on our agenda is 4E HVAC repairs.
No,
No?
we're on D.
Oh, sorry. Whoops, I'm jumping ahead. Item D, civil engineering update 2026.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and for Brian for being up here as we talk about, we had a big discussion at our study session last week. I apologize, I was at a conference and I wasn't able to be part of that discussion, and Brian was at the same conference, but I know you had a rich discussion on this topic, and I'd like to have this evening provide us for an update from Brian on our due diligence process for selecting professional civil engineering services for the 2026 sinking fund projects. After reviewing those proposals, as you'll see in your packet, and conducting interviews, we're recommending Spalding D. Decker as the selected firm. We appreciate the submissions from all firms and value our ongoing professional relationships. So we hope to give you an update on that, and we're going to turn it over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Yeah, so to touch point on that, through the sinking fund, going back to, I believe, 2017, we've been doing the asphalt repairs and some other miscellaneous civil engineering activities with contractors. NTH has been our partner for that time period up until through this year. They performed very strongly. We still have a great relationship with them, but just out of maintaining to understand we're getting fair market value, doing our due diligence on behalf of the district, we did go out to make sure that we do work with a lot of great partners in the K-12 arena in civil engineering, just to make sure we're being good stewards of the dollars, to go back out, understand where competitive fees would be. So we did issue an RFP to 5 engineering firms, received those back, as Mr. Green had mentioned. We know these firms firsthand, but we also went through and made sure to ask the right questions. We gave them some scope for proposed scope in 26, 27 of what a typical scope would be, understood what those fees would be, and then also establish a fee structure for future years. It's at the owner's discretion, or Livonia District's discretion, that if we're satisfied with the work they do this coming year, we can extend them again. If there's something happens, we're not in a position to extend again. That control lies with the district. This is not a long-term contract. It's something we can assess year by year. So with that said, Spalding Dedecker did respond with those fixed fees based on how we do it is, if there's $1 million worth of work, we want to know what the percentage that we'd charge against that $1 million of construction. In this case, they had a range between, depending on the size and complexity, we have to understand there's different involvement with a 37 jurisdiction. There's more effort on their part. They range between 4 and 6.5%. Compared to others in the group, that's going to be a savings of what we had previously, between 2 and 5% of those services. So on $1 million worth of work, you got to understand that would be $20,000 to $50,000 per million that we would save in the professional services side of it. Small increments yearly, but on a 10-year program like we're working that adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So once again, great service by NTH. They're still working in district for other capacities, working with the facilities department with some material testing and monitoring, and still have a great relationship with them. But in this exercise, we found that there was Spalding Dedecker that has performed well, not only outside in the district, but they were sub-consultants for the Early Childhood Center under our Architect TMP, as well as the robotics program. So proven very well in the district, great team, and we feel comfortable recommending them to bring them on board for the next years for the sinking fund.
Comments or questions on this item? And this does not require a vote, because this is professional service. This is just for information.
According to our governance document, we do not, we would not bring forward this type of service for a vote, but it certainly is important that the board is aware, and we really wanted to emphasize that this is an ongoing process for us to have that responsibility of that fiscal due diligence. And it really felt like the appropriate time as we're moving into our next phase of projects. And so that in no way is a reflection of the relationship we've had with NTH or other contractors, but we are going to be looking at a substantial savings, and so that really is, we believe, worth the effort to go through, take a look at how the programming goes next year, and then make a determination going forward. So we will continue to keep you apprised of that, but this would be, we would not go further with the conversation beyond this.
Okay,
for the
sounds
board
good.
meeting.
That's good. All righty. Next item then on our agenda is, at this point, is item E, HVAC repairs.
Ms. Burton, may I ask permission? I know Ms. Smith had to
Yes.
step out for a moment. She'll be right back. May we go to F and then?
Certainly. Go right ahead.
Back to E? All
Yep.
right, thank you.
F is purchase of Stevenson High School bleachers for the practice field.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, I'd like to bring forth a recommendation for the purchase of bleachers for the new practice field at Stevenson High School. The field currently does not have seating, and this addition will support both practices and competitive events. The proposal includes 2 sets of bleachers with a total capacity of 120 seats installed on newly poured concrete pads. We recommend awarding the purchase to Southern Bleacher Company through Buy Board for a total of $35,850 funded by the general fund. And what is also part of that is we had did a site visit, and we noticed, we looked at the side of the field, whether it would be the east or west side that would be the most appropriate, and due to spacing, we felt the 35-yard line, approximately a set at each 35-yard line over at Stevenson, would be appropriate for those bleachers. And so we had the team out there, Harry Lau and Carl, Brian, myself, superintendent, and we feel that would be a really next step moving forward for that practice field.
On the east side.
On the east side. Did I say west? I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't say east
Okay,
side.
east side.
That-
Yes.
that was
they-
gonna be
they
the
will
next
on
question. Yeah.
Yes, they will be on the east side of the field. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
If you happen to go out there, they are pouring concrete pads tomorrow for these, so you'll see some work going on. The bleachers will sit on those concrete pads that are prepared right now.
All righty. Mrs. Bradford?
So being on the east side, will that be an issue with sun or anything? Or do we not worry about that?
You
It's
know,
just the
this will
best
primarily
split.
be used for a practice field, but we certainly have the ability to have contests on that field. There really is, it
Not
really is a
enough
tight
space.
fit
Mhm,
on
Okay.
the west side because of
Okay.
the softball and baseball fields.
Gotcha.
So really, this is our only option, and we believe that it really, for the
won't.
short period of time that we would be using it for perhaps a freshman or a JV game, that it really would be certainly a
Okay.
very nice solution.
Okay, perfect, just check.
Okay. One question I have with this, are these the bleachers that have a backing to each step also, or each seating area? Or is there a way that a small child could slide through?
You know, when Mr. Lau got the quote, that's one of the questions he asked, and it's my understanding from seeing the pictures, that's not gonna be a concern, but I would, as a father of three
Yep.
that had young kids,
Yep.
that would visit sporting events quite often, I think it's always a little bit of just, you have to keep your eyes on your children when their bleachers are involved at any sport level.
Can you find out for, so
Yep.
we're not sure whether
Absolutely.
they have the backing on those or not?
I don't believe they do, but I will check.
Okay. And what would be the cost difference if is it even an option? And if so, what's the cost difference if we had some that did have a backing, so no little kid could slip through?
Yeah, I know they have different models that you can select from, so that'd be something we could follow up with.
Okay.
And these are, I didn't see the final, they were 3 or 4 rows, so they are not, they're not multiple, they're not 7, 8 stacks high. It's a smaller bleacher.
Yeah, they're, I believe maybe 4 total.
Okay.
So they are rather
4
short.
rows up,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Five.
okay,
5 levels up.
okay.
Okay, we can follow up on that.
All right, okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? No. So this will be going then on to a vote next week.
Yes, please.
Could you
Yes.
clarify your question? You don't mean a back on the end of each bench, correct? You mean on the top level, is there a backing? Is that what you mean?
I meant where each individual's shins and feet would go.
The risers.
Is it open so little kids could potentially slide through there, or is that,
Like our old,
Is it
like
closed?
our old seating in our high school gyms were
Yes.
open.
yes?
Gotcha, okay.
Yes, yep, exactly.
Gotcha.
It does say extruded aluminum risers on the quote, so I would imagine that's what that is, but.
Bentley bleachers yourself and can go through, but not a person. Because that has happened.
Yeah. I'm not worried about the cell phone, that's everyone's
Someone
on their
told
own
me
phone.
anyways, right? We'll get that answer for you as soon
Okay,
as
that's,
possible.
yeah, that just a safety and liability issue. I know there was, over this past year or two, there was a school district that was facing an issue because a kid did slide through, and then it was a matter of liability, and is it considered a building, is it not considered a building, and so forth. So it's just easier if we solve the problem at the beginning. So, all right, any other questions or comments on this item? No? All right, let's loop back to item E, HVAC repairs.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Green,
you.
Mrs. Smith?
Allison is back with us tonight, and so is Brian staying with us, and we'd like to provide an update on the emergency HVAC repairs completed across the district during the spring and summer. These repairs were necessary to maintain welcoming learning environments and were completed using third-party vendors outside the original bond scope. We're requesting formal board approval for emergency funding to cover these costs, and Ms. Smith's here tonight to explain that rationale.
Perfect. And I'll start by turning it over to Brian to give a little bit of rationale. I know the board is very familiar with this project.
Thank you. Yeah. So this work's associated with, I've been at this table a few times, updating on some of the issues we were having with the air conditioning systems in previous summers. We've since identified those. There are a handful that remain that we're gonna repair over Christmas break. But the known issues at the time, to expedite the completion of it, we were having issues with contractor and engineer understanding who's at fault, who's gonna fix the problem too. So under the guise of LPS legal, we understood we had the right to help expedite. School classrooms were being impacted, buildings were still getting wet, ceiling tiles were being damaged, and we could not sit back and do nothing. So at their advice, and we followed what we could in the small amount of timeline to get it done over the summer, we hired other HVAC contractors, understanding they're getting paid direct by the district to help expedite the completion of the work, because if that didn't happen, we would still have major issues in this district with leaking, more ceilings being damaged, and classes being impacted. So the decision was made as a group, knowing we had to move forward with getting other contractors involved to get this work done, and that's what happened over the summer.
And I can jump in. So as our policies are, that we need to come to the board, obviously, with purchases that would total this amount. So we are tracking all these costs into a separate account. We've provided that information to our legal counsel, and we are seeking reimbursement for these costs. But in total, we're projecting that the repairs could be in the neighborhood of $900,000. We would like to put in some contingency into that because we do not want to come back to the board for a second time. So I recommend we bring a cap sheet for you next week of about $1.1 million to be abundantly cautious. Obviously, though, whatever the board authorizes, if it doesn't go towards paying these vendors for the repairs, go right back to our general fund. We've worked with a number of companies for these projects. I know we've discovered some new relationships too with some vendors that have done great work. They've been fast, efficient, and done very good work for us. So we, of course, meet regularly, and like Brian said, with the blessing of our attorney, he recommended that we go forward, get our classrooms ready for students, so we've done that. But now we want to circle back with the board and make sure we have your formal authorization to complete these projects. So that's what we'd like to bring to you next week and get your official approval to pay these vendors for the work that they've done for us.
Okay. Comments or questions on this item? I know it's been very long and very complex, and I appreciate the district taking care, number one, of our students and our staff. Thank you. Mrs. Okoza, can you make sure this gets put on the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. All righty. That wraps up not building and site anymore, the operations committee.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Have a
Allison.
good
Thank
night.
you, Bill.
Thank you, Allison. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Burton. Moving on to item 5, our Division of Instruction Committee, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Acosta.
Thank you, President Bradford. This evening, we just have 2 items. Item 5A is the 35M grant purchase, and we have Mrs. O'Brien presenting.
Hello,
evening.
Mrs. O'Brien.
How are you?
How are you? I am wonderful. I have 2 great items tonight. The first one is a grant that we applied and received over $700,000 for Tier 1 literacy materials. So the 35M grant came out of the dyslexia law from the state of Michigan, and you could apply for one of 3 pathways for this grant. One was for Tier 1 materials, one was for intervention materials, and one was for professional development. If you chose any one of those, you had to use a state-approved vendor. So for Tier 1, there was a group of textbook companies that have been approved by the state of Michigan. If you did professional development, it had to be chosen from their companies, and the same thing for intervention materials. So knowing all of the work we've already done in K4 with our Tier 1 curriculum, and knowing that our 5-6, we have just recently added into reading in the last several years. And Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into reading was one of the approved textbooks from the state of Michigan. Mrs. Corey and I decided to investigate what we could use that grant for if we were to choose that as a Tier 1 grant application. So in researching it, we could, by up to 5th grade, so again, thinking about most school districts, 5th grade is in elementary, 6th is in middle. So this grant is a K through 5 grant. And Into Reading's 2025 version is what is approved by the state of Michigan. We use the 2022 version. So we determined that we would apply for the grant, updating our 5th grade teacher materials and student materials and digital licenses through the grant, professional development around those changes. In this investigation, there are very, very small changes between the 22 version and the 2025 version. So teachers will not have to learn a whole new platform. There's some new reading pieces, there's some new interactive pieces for a teacher to utilize when she teaches. And then, so then we would be able to use this money, over $730,000, to buy new teacher materials, 1 year of digital and print materials with 5 years gratis. So you need to spend the money within 1 calendar year. So years that we buy multiple years, we don't always buy all of those student journals in 1 year and then try to house them. We will be doing that with this purchase because it is paid for by the state of Michigan. And then the last piece was really, we've been shifting our small group instruction to be based around Lexile levels instead of guided reading levels. The science of reading has shifted us to look at a Lexile level. We get one from iReady, and all of our guided reading books have a Lexile level, but we could use this money to buy small group instruction books for any of the grades, K through 5. So as long as we bought them through the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into reading program. So any of their supplementals were approved through the grant. So we would like to use this money to also purchase small group instruction books for our K4 book rooms and then our 5-6 book rooms. And that way then we'd be continuing to provide our teachers new updated resources for their small group reading that they're doing with their students that's better aligned to looking at their book choice based on a Lexile level rather than a guided reading level. So that is what I would like to request, is an approval to purchase, or approval to purchase through Houghton Mifflin up to $733,960. I don't have quotes for all of it yet, so we're researching which of the supplemental small group instruction books we have, but everything from this grant has to be purchased through HMH, so that's Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and is linked to the Into Reading. So we can only spend this grant just on this one, at this one provider. Did I miss anything?
You didn't. In all likelihood, we will not be able to reach that threshold of $733,000, but we have talked about it and feel it would be most advantageous if we have your approval to do so up to the amount that we were allotted in the grant.
Yep.
And then if other things come through and that we're able to utilize those, we will. But we want to be very cautious about where we move forward, and that we're not integrating materials that would disrupt the flow of what we're currently doing just for the sake of spending the dollars, if that makes sense. There are lots of things you can purchase. What we don't want to do is put on the table in front of our teachers a lot of new materials simply because we have the grant funds to do so. We've been very, very thoughtful and deliberate about our Tier 1 instruction. I believe you'll be very pleased with the next agenda item where we show you what the results of that have been in terms of student achievement. And so we want to be very careful about making these shifts with our staff so that they can do so in a deep and meaningful way, and utilize the materials that they have, albeit an updated version.
Correct.
But not add in a lot of elements that are, extraneous to, extemporaneous to that, so.
And to piggyback on that, they do offer lots of supplemental digital materials, a platform, a tutoring, and again, we really took this as how could we support what we're currently doing and not say to a teacher, we got this and this and this and this, and it's good for a few years, but we're not sure after that. So instead, we really looked deeply at what they offered that already supports what we do and can amplify what we're working on.
We wish we could have gotten 6th grade, quite frankly,
Yes, of
because
course.
as a 5-6 school, we are using HMH. It would have been wonderful to be able to also purchase that through the grant, but it was very the guidelines were very stringent.
They were.
Thank you. President Bradford.
Thank you. just to clarify, the grades 1 through 5, the Into Reading HMH readers and the digital and print library, are we currently using Into Reading or only Into Reading at 5th grade and 6th grade?
It is our
Okay,
reading program at 5th and 6th grade.
Got it.
The small guided reading books are very similar to what we would do for literacy footprints. These Rigby readers that company is connected to HMH.
Okay, so the Lexile levels for the
Correct.
small one, you're gonna just integrate those into
Yes.
the 1 through 5? Okay, just wanted
So
to
it'll be
make sure.
part of the leveled book room. The
Perfect.
book where teachers can
It'll
go
be
and grab
kinda
those resources.
supplemental for
based on the
helping.
needs of their kiddos.
Awesome, okay, thank you.
Mrs. Burton, can you tell me what a Lexile level is and how it differs from guided reading?
I can off the top of my head, but I could probably write you a good memo that would better
Okay.
explain it. So it is another way of looking at the text and what is within that text. The way we looked at guided reading levels was about the majority of the book followed a rhythm or a rhyme or was linked to the picture in lower grades specifically. And a Lexile level is more defined along phonics and phonemic awareness leveled books.
Okay.
So kids applying those skills, which was something we were missing earlier, and these books are better aligned. So even in the current books we have, there are Lexile levels. They say this L book is Lexile level 320. So teachers this year, actually starting in the May PD Day, have been learning about what Lexile levels mean and how their grade level band is what they want to be looking at to elevate kids' ability to work with words they don't know and how to sound them out.
Okay,
But I also can give you more of a detailed,
okay,
what it isn't,
Okay.
in a memo for you.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Thank you. Will these new Lexile books be in addition to the current books we have, or will they be replacing them?
They will be in addition to. Our books are not that old, and because they do have Lexile levels, we just need to shift how we're using what we currently have, but then giving schools new books to add to their book room will help that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We love reading.
We do love reading.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5B,
Thank you.
M-STEP results. Take it away, Mrs. O'Brien.
I am so excited. Mr. Whitburn, will you take a packet and pass it?
Settle in, it's a big packet.
It is a big packet. It is. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about what you have in front of you, and then for the community, there's a slideshow that has kind of a summary of all the pieces that you have in front of you, just on an individual slide for each grade level. So what you have in front of you, the first page is our current proficiency scores from last spring's 2025 M-STEP, PSAT, and SAT scores compared to the state for last year, and then the previous year's scores are on that. So this should look familiar to you. This is how we share it each year. If a score is pink, it's gone down from the previous year. If it is green, it has gone up. And then the district score from the previous year is just grades, just so that you could find it in that chart of 4 numbers. So we have a lot of things to celebrate within our scores, and we have some things we're continuing to work on. One of the surprises this year was our 3rd grade scores had gone down just a bit, both in ELA and math. But what I will share with you as we go through our presentation this evening is that our ranking in the Tri-County area, we are still within the top 20. So we went down a little bit. We're looking at that. We've had conversations from the early end of taking the test, like we were noticing kids weren't scoring as high. So we have some thoughts as to what that was. But then when you look at our continuous growth for 4th and 5th, we've done a nice job. 6th grade, we went down a little bit, more in, well, they're both pretty even, about 3 points, 2.5 points. 7th grade ELA went up, 8th grade ELA went up, 11th grade ELA went up. There's been that shift for our middle schools using, with Mrs. Russo, aligning our reading, and I'm blanking on their curriculum.
In sync?
Nope. It is core, I'll find it. So she has been working very hard with our ELA teachers, and it's showing in their scores. Mathematically, you can see that we have had some drop from 5th through middle school. And if you recall me sitting at this table this time last year, we talked about high school SAT math scores having gone down. Mr. Itu and the principals have made a concerted effort. Mrs. Caldwell working with our high school math department chairs and our CALs saying, are we preparing kids for the SAT? What are we missing? Are we giving them practice problems? And so on. And so you can see that we've started to come back up in that SAT math score. Our social studies scores have gone up, and our science scores, well, 5th grade social studies went up, science just a little bit down, middle school up, both of them, a pretty significant growth in social studies, and then high school went down, I mean, just a teeny little bit in social studies, 0.1, I wouldn't even call that going down, I'd say that's staying the same. So this is an overview of just the overall proficiency for Livonia Public Schools. And then your packet.
May I just
Yes.
point out something in the SAT? So if we look at grade 11, the SAT, both the ELA and the math, if you look at the state growth, so there was growth at the state of about 4 percentage points in the ELA and a little over 1 in the math. And there was a significant growth in the district. So when you take a look at the ELA portion, you're looking at an 8% gain year over year and just over 5% in math. And that really is a significant year over year growth. So this was an area last year that you may recall we spent time on and we had some concerns about. And so we really see the impact of that. And so one of the things we always want to look at is because it's a different cohort of children that you're testing, when we compare 3rd grade this year to 3rd grade last year, it doesn't always show a complete picture. Certainly we always want to see incremental growth and that trend going upward. But one of the things we're looking at is whether or not there was growth across the state, and then did we outperform that growth? And so I want to make sure that when we talk about an area where we've gone down, we need to take a look at what was the trend that we saw in the state, and have we outperformed that trend? Because again, then you're comparing all of the children who took the same assessment, where when you're doing year over year, it's not only a different assessment, but it's a different cohort of children. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of our community, could you please explain that, which grade levels are tested for which items?
I have a whole slideshow I'm going to do for our
Awesome.
community that we'll show in just a minute. I want to go over what you have in front of you, and then I'm going to go through each grade level.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the rest of your packet is one of our data points that we look at, is that we have the goal of being in the top 20 of the Tri-County area in each area of ELA, and math is our core goal, but we also look at science and social studies. The way we look at this is our comparison to all of the districts within the Tri-County area, and then also we look at let me go back a second. When you are looking at your scores, you typically score along the lines of your socioeconomic status. So when you outperform your socioeconomic status, that's something you should look at. What do you have in place? A strong MTSS, a strong Tier 1, those things. When we look at our tri-county ranking, we look at other districts that have less at-risk students than we do, but we outperform those. So each one of your grade level pages has Livonia Public Schools in blue. If a district is green, they had less students who are at risk, but we outperform them. If there's districts that are pink, they outperformed us and had more at-risk students than we had. And then the little blue box just shows you where the state would fall, the state average. So
So just note that there's 81 districts in the tri-county area. Our goal has been, and it's one of our strategic goals that we look at for the district each year, and our goal has been to be in the top quarter of those 81 districts. So that is Oakland, all Oakland County schools, all Macomb County schools, and all Wayne County schools. And so what you'll see is a ranking from the highest performing all the way down to the lowest performing. And one of the things that we shared with you last year was also the ranking of economically disadvantaged. And we recalled that the board appreciated having that information because we know it really is impactful on student achievement. And so we have quite a bit to be proud of in terms of our growth. And if we can share the spoiler alert to start, we have the highest percentage of areas in the up in the top 20 that we have ever had in our district history. So it's something we've been tracking for several years, but we have more areas in that band than we have ever had. Yes. So do we want to let them take a look through?
Yep.
Would that be easier for you to just be able to take a look through each sheet? You'll see at the top what the area is that's been tested and where we fall with that.
They should be organized third grade ELA, third grade math, fourth grade ELA, fourth grade math. And then when you add in a social studies or science at 5th, 8th, and 11th.
I'm going to just pause while you're going through that. When you get to two areas where we did not, the PSAT 8th grade ELA and PSA 8th grade math, you'll see our ranking is 22 in each of those, so we just missed that top 20. And if you take a look at the band of where that percentage is, for instance, if you look at PSAT 8th grade ELA, I'm looking at the second to the last column. So you see we scored at 75.4. And if you look just above, when you see 75.5, 75.9, 75.9, so that band is very tight. I don't know if you're following where I am, but when you look at our performance percentage, so while those are two areas that we did not, we were within 0.5% of being in that same area. So we would call that pretty darn close as well. Those were the only two areas, right? The 8th grade. There were not.
Other than science and social studies.
Yeah. So just to recap that, in ELA and in math, across the board in all grade levels, with the exception of that 8th grade that I just showed you, we have met our goal of being in the top 20, which we have not done previously.
That's
And
fabulous.
in 8th grade, in those two areas, that's why we wanted to show you that band of how close that was to being there. So very, very close to that goal of having 100% of those areas meet that
This
threshold.
is excellent. Yep. These are exciting results to see come in.
Yes.
They really are.
Yep.
So I'd like to take a few minutes just for the benefit of the community to walk through a slideshow. Should be very familiar to you. It's the same as last year. Just so that there's a slide for each grade. It shows their scores and their improvement, the state, and so on. So it's just a summary of what you have. And let's see. Still on the side?
Yep, it just rolls down.
Well, no, Allison, will you move the mouse for whatever I did wrong on that? Just, yep. There you go, thank you. Okay, so, just to summarize, improving in ELA, 4th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 11th grade.
That's excellent.
And 4th grade, 5th grade, 11th grade math, and then 5th and 8th grade science and social studies. So these are just like the overarching results. And then to kind of summarize what you have in front of you, these are the number of districts that we outperformed for each one of those tested areas. So in ELA, we outperformed 8 districts that had less economically disadvantaged students than we do. More. We outscored them, and they have more economic. Less. I was right. You and I were looking at each other. They have less at-risk kids, and we performed better than them. So 4th grade, 10 districts, 11 in mathematics. I mean, that's significant. 7th grade ELA, 8 districts. 6th grade, 8 districts. So we not only, and Mr. Casada has a separate chart of just how our economically disadvantaged kids did versus other districts' economically disadvantaged kids. So again, that says that what we're putting into place is supporting all of our learners, and that's what a good system has in place. This is just an example of what you have, and so This should look familiar. It has a lot of the same information we just talked about. It has our third grade overall score on it. ELA is 56.7, math is 58.2. I put in the little green bubbles where we are in the Tri-County up there. But as Superintendent Oquist stated, so our ELA scores went down, but so did the state. Our math scores went down farther than the state scores did for third grade. So that was part of our tumble, but we're still 15th in the Tri-County area. And then again, I put that outperformed how many other districts? Yes.
Mrs. O'Brien, is this going, did you say this is on our website?
This will be on our website. This is what I created for the community.
In your green bubble, can you put out ELA number 12 in Tri-County out of 88? Because
Or 81.
Or 81.
Sure.
Whatever it is, because I think most folks would have no clue how many school districts
Sure.
are in our
Absolutely.
Tri-County and how strong of a score that is.
Yeah, it's something we know very well, so
Yep.
it's great. Thank you. So fourth grade, some great growth, 62.1% proficient, 63 in math. So that ELA score, we're 10th in the Tri-County. We went up and the state went down. So our gap between ourselves and the state, we increased our gap. Math scores went up, but we went up more than the state did. So those are the things that we look at. And again, we outperformed 10 and 11 districts. Fifth grade, there's 4 scores on there. That's a very busy slide. Our ELA and our math scores and our social studies scores, as we talked about, all went up. And the state went up in ELA and math and social studies. Science, we went down, and the state, I don't know if I'd call that going down. They're very 40.3, 40.4. But again, our goal is always to be above the state, always to be growing, and then to land in that top 20. Those are our goals. Sixth grade, we went, it says we went up, but we went down 3 points, and we went down about 1.8 points. And then the state slightly went up in ELA and slightly up in mathematics. But again, 13th and 13th in the Tri-County area. 7th grade ELA, 55.6 and 45.2. So this is the last year we take an M-STEP, ELA, or math. We move on to the College Board PSAT and SAT scores. So even though we went down in math and the state went up, we stayed in the top 20 of the Tri-County area for 7th grade math. Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Oh, thank you. On the 7th grade ELA sheet on this one, it has us at 52.6. If we're 55.6, let's get the right number in there so we can have a more accurate reflection of our placement, which would be significantly higher. We'd be in 12th place instead of 14th.
Can you tell me what grade that was, 7th?
7th grade ELA.
So 55.6 on ours, and my slide is incorrect.
Your slide says 52. Well, this sheet, the one that shows all the counties,
Says
has us at
52.
52.6, and 55.6 puts us up at.
Okay,
Uh,
I will check with
12th
Mr. Casada about that. We caught a few things today.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not an easy task.
Oh, no, I've
Yeah.
got a lot of
Each
numbers,
way
but-
he downloads
Boy.
the information is always off just a teeny bit, but thank you. I will
Yeah, I
definitely
mean, that-
double check that
I
one.
just want to make sure that we're as high as we can be.
Absolutely.
And it be real. Yeah. And then 8th grade, so 8th grade is our first year taking the PSAT. And as you can see, if you remember, last year was the first year it went online. So last year they
Oh,
took
that's
it
right.
online. And we did see a strong growth in our ELA score. But other districts made more growth on that last year. So again, we've made some growth, but we're not quite as far along in that as other districts. And then our math scores have fallen, and so Mrs. Caldwell and I have a plan. We're meeting with all of the middle school math departments, and just talking about our alignment to that test, and making sure that they are aware of the practice problems that are out there. College Board does have practice problems where M-STEP, doesn't have a released practice test. And so we want to make sure that we're providing our students with the right kinds of vocabulary and opportunities to show what they know on this test. 19 points or 18 points in social studies improvement, and about 5 points in science at middle school. So that's a nice growth for those two content areas. And then 11th grade, again, we went up both in evidence-based reading and writing on the SAT, and we improved on SAT mathematics by about 5 points. Our science and social studies, our social studies is just about where it was last year, and our science scores did go down. The state scores in social studies went up, and the state scores in science went down. The science test is still, if you recall a few years ago, they took the social studies test completely, they took the science test completely offline and realigned it. And they're currently doing that with social studies, but they're not going to take the test offline. They're just going to change the items on the test. So Mrs. Rousseau says last year they started that process, is realigning that test.
Do we have or keep data on how specific cohorts test from third through? I would be interested, obviously not tonight, but just at a later time.
Yes.
I'd be curious to see some of that.
Yes, yes, we do also look at that, and in fact, if we could put the slides up one more time. So we shared with you where our rankings were in the Tri-County area. So these are the last 4 years where our Tri-County ranking has been. So this is just ELA. So when we say we've not gotten all that many tests as we have this year, 8th grade ELA is the only area, and we looked at the small percentage of difference. If we had scored just a little bit higher, we would have been ranked higher. But you can see in 3rd grade, 3 out of the past 4 years, 4th grade every year, 5th grade 3 out of 4 years, 6th grade every year, 7th grade every year. So since these last several years, new materials, a schedule of the day that works wonderful, an intervention block, a strong MTSS focus, we have things that are really working well. And then you can see in mathematics, even 4 years ago, we had, a middle school 5th through 8th struggle. We've gotten new materials, and you can see that 5th grade has moved along this past year. More students have met that state target. 6th and 7th have been in that range. And then again, 8th grade, we're just not quite there yet.
Still trending though.
Yep, yep, and
And
that's
just-
what we want, is keep moving.
For the folks that are looking this at home, this is a ranking,
Correct,
not a percentage.
correct. This is a
Chart.
ranking. This is where we
Just
land.
want to make sure people understand why we're so excited about this, yeah.
Yes. So what other questions do you have?
Just so you know, I'll be sharing more data at our closed session on October 27th, and we'll be going into the district data dashboard, which Mr. Casada has created, and we'll be able to really take a look at specific subgroups and dig deeper into the data, because I know that's something that you've asked for. And so we'll be doing that at our closed session on the 27th. But please don't hesitate to ask us for any information you'd like. We'll take a look at the question that Mr. McFarland had and make sure we include some of that data as well. But this is really an opportunity now for each school to not only use their iReady data in their common assessment data in their school improvement performance tasks, but really to take a look at this not only for trends within their own school, but also to take a look at individual performance. And so we have the ability to follow a child from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th grade and to see their progress. And it's generally more helpful to look at this in aggregate as opposed to individual students. I think we get a lot more information from an iReady performance over the course of the year, the 3 times that they take that. But we do have the ability to take a look at a class of students or individual students as well, in addition to taking a look at an entire grade level, a school, or a district.
just for our information, or will you, this is enough reporting? Okay. So, any other questions or comments?
It's exciting to
That's
see the,
great.
yeah, to see.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
the cumulative test results, the cumulative rankings are really exciting to see.
It is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien, to you, your entire team,
Yes.
for all of the work that you've done in creating a consistent, rigorous Tier 1 instruction and bringing that consistency across all of our grade levels in all of our schools. So it's been a tremendous, tremendous effort, and we appreciate your leadership greatly.
Many,
Thank
many people have made that happen. So
For sure.
happy to represent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the Division of Instruction Committee report.
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. Oh, that was a very
Was that
very
great?
good one. Yes, I enjoyed that very much. Okay. Moving on to item 6, the Board Policy Committee. This is always a good one, too. We've got lots going on. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Frank.
And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Burton and Mrs. Oquist. We're going to start with bylaws of the board, AA, district organization, district legal name.
Thank you. So the changes you see in red are the ones we brought to you last week in the study session. Strike-throughs are where we're suggesting that be removed. Red would be additions, and then where you see blue as we move through, those were additional changes that we made when we were together last week. And I hope I was able to capture that, but please don't hesitate. If there are more changes to be made, we can certainly do that before the first reading. But in bylaws of the board, as we reviewed AA, we changed the title of this bylaw to district legal name. And the only changes that we made is to the revised school code to add the phrase "as amended" on the end of that. So there were no additional changes made since last week.
Looks great. Nobody has anything for that one?
All right,
Okay,
and
thank
A, B, B, we took a look, and I believe we were all in agreement to the first two paragraphs, the opening two. In number 1, these were the most important functions of the board. And so we added hiring and evaluating the superintendent, and there was a suggestion made as we referred to the goals that were set, to the goals set by the board in collaboration with the superintendent and in accordance with state law. So that was an addition since last week. As we took a look at 3, that really needed a rewrite, and I really kept it very clear and direct. The board is responsible for visionary strategic planning and goal setting and does so in conjunction with the superintendent. If you wanted more information about that, we could certainly add it, but in relation to goal setting and strategic planning, we know that is one of the 3 main responsibilities of the board. If there's anything additional you'd like added to that, we can certainly change it.
Any thoughts?
Mr. Johnson.
My only
did-
suggestion was to flip the title from goal setting and strategic planning to strategic planning and goal setting, because it follows along with the sentence.
Great.
Anything else? Oh, yes, Mrs. Burton.
Backing up a moment to the opening paragraph, 3rd line where it says decision singularly, I suggest that we make it, put an S on the end and make it decisions. Because it's decisions, speech, and actions.
Yes.
By the board, the decisions.
Yes, decisions, speech, and actions of a single member of the board.
So take out the and add the S.
What,
No, leave the.
we can leave the,
Oh,
because then it would read.
directed by the board, the decisions.
Right, except
speech.
when performing a specific duty as directed by the board, the decisions, speech, and actions of a single board member are not reflective of or binding on the entire board or school district.
Okay.
Liz,
Yep, in that same sentence, where it says member of the board are not reflective of or binding, we should change the or binding to nor binding. So we have not reflective nor binding.
Anything else?
Just that plural on decisions, got that marked here too.
Okay, moving on to
Number four.
number 4.
Yep. We made quite a bit of change, but I did not have noted any additional changes. Is there any additional changes you would like on allocation of financial resources?
Mrs. Burton, didn't you have something?
Go ahead with
You go-
Liz.
No, you go first,
Okay,
because yours might take care of mine.
okay. First was eliminate the dash in the fourth line.
Amen.
Oh, I don't know why that's.
And we're changing it to amen.
No, we're not yet,
Oh,
Not yet.
We can just eliminate it
Yes.
entirely. It doesn't need anything else in.
Oh,
And then the
add an
last-
S on programs, right, at the end. Were we gonna add an S on, to carry out the educational programs?
I think in this case, we're talking about the,
Oh,
in
program
whole,
as
the
a whole.
educational program.
Okay, perfect.
And then the second sentence of that, or the last sentence of that, really isn't accurate. It says the board is responsible for exercising proper control over all district funds. That's really the finance department's responsibility. But we do have a responsibility, and that's in the audit area, which I think they're trying to get at in that sentence.
Do you want to say ensuring instead of exercising? Ensuring proper control?
Well, I would just replace that sentence with, the board is responsible for a proper audit that is completed annually. Because I think that's what they're getting at the audit, and the audit encompasses far more than just the controls. And we are responsible to see that an audit is done every year, and we get the report on that. So I would suggest something along the lines of, and it can be tweaked, the board is responsible to ensure that a proper audit is completed annually.
Can we say external audit?
But isn't there a piece in
A
there?
proper external audit? Well, the internal controls are part of the audit, but there's more to the audit than just that. I mean, it says the board is responsible for exercising proper control over all district funds.
But doesn't that mean, like, control, like, we have to approve more than, like, the controls used in the audit? Like, we have to approve all funds. Isn't it more saying that we are responsible for all the district funds, period?
Well, and the title says allocation
I
of
think that,
financial resources, which doesn't, to me, suggest audit. Although we are responsible for having an audit, I don't know that it's the right paragraph for that.
Mrs. Frank, I agree that we do it, but I think that it's covered in the first sentence.
Okay.
The fact that we have to, that we are responsible for the budget and the allocation of funds for all those different areas.
Okay.
Because I agree with you, we do have
Yeah.
that responsibility.
Right, right.
And I would leave the audit in there, because this is basically the item that talks about our financial responsibility.
Do you want it to say allocation and oversight of financial resources, so that
Sure.
That would work.
better
Yep.
fits?
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
So, Mrs. Burton, it would read, the board is responsible for ensuring a proper audit is completed each year? Is that what your
Something
wording
along that
was?
line, yes. And if we want to tweak a word or two here or there, that's fine with me, but
I
that's
think we
the
said the board
concept.
is responsible to ensure that a proper audit is completed annually.
Yeah, that's
To
what I had.
ensure?
Yeah, to ensure.
The board is responsible to ensure that a proper audit is completed annually. And if we want to wordsmith it, that's fine with me.
To ensure the completion of a proper audit.
I don't care.
All
Anything
right.
else on 4?
5, I think we all felt that C was a bit awkward. So it would say the board shall ensure that that the district employs the staff necessary to carry out the instructional program. I wondered if you would like those terms to agree. So
Yes.
in 4, we have educational program. In
Yes.
5, we have instructional program. I think educational is more,
I agree with you.
encompasses a
Yep.
broader perspective. So we can change that to educational.
And do we think educational program, does that encompass our extracurricular program also?
I
would
believe it
think-
does,
Okay.
yeah. More so than instructional.
Right.
I think
Yes.
instructional really narrows it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our interns and all this stuff.
If you wanted, we could say something like the staff necessary to carry out the educational program and offerings, if we want to make sure. But I think educational program
I think educational programs are.
is sufficient.
I can live with educational program.
Okay. 6, school facilities, we did not have changes to that. And 7, it would now read, "The board is responsible for providing adequate and direct means for keeping local citizens informed about the schools and for being available to receive feedback from the public."
Yep.
Okay?
Ms. Jarvis?
Can I pop back to number 2? This is just putting my grammar hat on again. Policy making does not need to be hyphenated there.
2 words separate?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to ABCA, district organization, number of board members.
So in this, we just added the revised school code as amended. There was just a little bit of variance from Michigan general school laws or the revised school code without as amended. So when we went through, we wanted to make those all agree, and then the legal reference has been updated.
Any questions, comments on that one? Okay. ABCB, district organization, board member qualifications, and oath of office.
I hope I captured what we talked about on this
Yes.
one.
It looks like it.
Yep.
So I believe I did, but we wanted the oath of office to be added to the title, and we were going to take away the subheading of
Yes.
acceptance of
Yes.
office
Yep.
was one. I added boundaries. I took the liberty to
Yes.
add boundaries.
Yep.
And then you wanted it really doesn't show, but this was previously just one paragraph under that subheading, and you wanted it to be 2 separate paragraphs. The first one is within 5 days being notified of the election, et cetera, and then you wanted it to be created as a 3rd paragraph about the oath.
Yep. Perfect.
Yep.
Questions, comments? Nope. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, Mrs. Jarvis.
That's okay.
I'm gonna pay attention.
I missed the discussion last week, so I apologize if this was something that was already. Under what used to be called acceptance of office constitutional oath, the first sentence says, "Within 5 business days after an election, each member-elect shall be notified of the election." What's the purpose of that? Because I don't know what we're getting at here.
Election
Shall be
results.
notified of their election? Shall be notified of his or her election? Shall be notified of the election results? I mean, the
It's
election's
written-
already been, it's
how
over and
written.
done.
That's taken exactly from state law. And we did have that discussion that it is a little bit
Weird.
ambiguous.
Yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
But-
if it's taken out of state law, then
That's exactly.
that's probably where the correction should be made.
Yeah, exactly, but it's
Sounds
one of
like
those
I'm
MCLs
looking
at the bottom of the page.
Right.
Exactly. We
Okay.
just copied and pasted.
Because it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yep, we kind of chuckled and said, we don't wait 10 days, 5 days, whatever, we usually find out the night of, or
Yeah.
if not, in Livonia, we find out the
Early
next
morning.
morning.
I mean, really, if they want to be notified of the election results, I get that, but they say notified of the election. Well, the election happened 5 days before that.
Yes, yeah. You have to talk to Lansing to get that one.
Absolutely, and we will.
Good luck.
Yeah. Okay, ABCC, district organization, board member election to office.
Yes, so this is, there were no changes beyond those that we had last week, and so we added the 2nd paragraph. The school district shall conduct the election of school board members as detailed above, and special elections as deemed necessary by the Board of Education. That should say in accordance, not is accordance. So good thing we read that. In accordance with the provisions of law and by resolutions adopted by the board. So other than, we'll change is to in. Does anyone have any other changes they'd like to see made? Okay.
Okay, moving on, A, B, C, D.
So,
Board member,
I will say that I want to be certain that I captured what we talked about, because the section in blue, we actually had as a strike-through. And if you take that out, the second paragraph really doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think we first need to discuss, having conducted the election, to then talk about changes in precincts and use of buildings and facilities. So again, I took the liberty of putting that back in. That's why it's in blue. That was originally as a strike-through. I believe we should keep that blue section, because we did talk about having that second paragraph be taken out completely and put into use of facilities. I think section, is that J, I or J? But this really is board member method of election. So if you would like to keep that as a strikeout and you'd like to move that second paragraph and remove this policy completely, we can. But if we're going to keep the second paragraph, I think we do need the first one to give it context.
any thoughts? President Bradford?
Well, this says the school district shall conduct the election of school board members every other year in even years. Doesn't that cover on the one before? The term of the election to office, they shall be elected biennially during even year general elections. So really, do we need to have that policy, or can we strike it out? Or what is it for?
Do we want to combine the two?
Well, isn't that sentence, because I would actually get rid of the bottom part and put it elsewhere in business offerings, facilities.
Right.
But, so what is this exactly, the method of election? How does it differ from district organization board member election to office? I think they're the same.
The paragraphs are the same.
Yeah.
We could take the second paragraph and put that as a third paragraph on ABCC if we wanted to.
Oh, I like that better.
Yep, I
And
do
then we
too.
move ABCD.
Yep.
Oh,
I know it's fun to say.
And keep
Yep.
building and facilities should be made.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that better.
Okay, and then, so we're gonna strike out ABCD, move the bottom portion onto ABCC.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what, though? Do we also, I'm perfectly fine leaving, with what we just said. I agree with it. There shouldn't be two separate policies. However, is there elsewhere in our policy book that refers to our buildings being used for elections? Because there are oftentimes, our buildings are being used for non-school board elections. And if that's the case, this verbiage of the second paragraph of ABCD needs to appear also in our facility section of our policy book, so that it can't be construed that this only refers to elections when school board members are involved. If it's a primary, if it's whatever kind of election,
Oh,
this verbiage saying that we may let the city use our buildings needs to appear somewhere else in our
and
policy.
maybe it does, we don't know that, right?
Well,
But we'll
it
have to
should.
check into it.
Yeah.
This harks back to the days when the summer election was only the school board.
Right.
Can I make a suggestion, or would we change,
It's still,
on ABCC, would we change the title to board member method of election instead of board member election to office? Wouldn't it be the board member method of election, because that also goes with the facilities?
yep.
What I'd like to do, and Mrs. Burton, how do you feel about this? My only concern is I don't want to lose any intent of Public Acts 232 and 233. And the reference to Michigan compiled law is different.
Oh.
So I think we should take a look at Public Acts 232 and 233 before we get rid of
Strike it out.
ABCD.
Okay.
And make sure that there's nothing in there
Yep.
that we're
Yep.
losing, because
Why don't we take a look
if we
at,
take that out, then I'm wondering,
Why it's there.
what
What-
this is referencing and why they're two separate policies. So I think it's worth it because they're not
Let's
the
take-
same legal
yeah.
reference.
Let's
So-
take a deeper dive into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you can plug it into the
Yeah, we can
one
do
or
that
something.
this week.
They're under
Yep.
168, but they're different sections.
Exactly,
168.
exactly.
Yep.
So if we don't have to worry about that, then we will move paragraph 2 of ABCD into paragraph 3 of ABCC. And we will find out if there's another area of policy that refers to facility use for elections, and if so, we will update it to include this paragraph.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Absolutely.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Anything else on that? Okay, and then under AC, we changed the title to school grade configuration. And so then I also changed where it said that we had the levels of instruction. And I thought it would make more sense if we said the levels of school grade configuration are organized as follows. We took out grade 14, which mysteriously appeared. And I believe that is the only change there.
That was for the few of us that spent 4 years in grade 3.
We could take the words level of out also. And just say the school grade configuration is organized.
Yes.
Yes.
Keep it simple.
Anything else?
And it is not our,
AC?
I like it.
Good.
And
And
AF,
then-
the easiest one?
Deleting that one?
well,
Yes,
it's
we're
the
recommending deleting
school
that.
grade configuration. It's the configuration is as follows. Is. Yep, because it's a
Yes.
configuration is what we're talking
Definition
about.
of is.
And that wraps up the policy committee. process.
Almost.
Oh, no, no, no. Sorry,
Mrs. Opus,
Yes,
we also
ma'am.
have 4 of these titles now that we're changing, so if we could ask Mrs. Gunta to change on our index, on our board book, it only referred to a change in AC. But there's 3 others. Do you want to jot these down?
Yes, let me just, one.
I'll
finish
just
this
say the
quick
letters
note.
for them.
Review and change index to reflect change in policy titles. Okay, go ahead, please.
AA, ABCB, and ABCC. And she already has noted that AC is getting an update.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Okay, that, anything else on policy? That concludes the policy committee.
And is this
All right,
First reading.
Yep.
okay,
Are we don't vote.
No.
yeah,
Procedure that we're taking out.
No, it'll come out, but we don't have to vote on that.
yeah, perfect. All right, that concludes everything for you?
Yes.
Awesome, okay. All right, we're gonna move on to item 7, Human Resources Committee. Mr. McFarland.
There does not appear to be anything on the agenda tonight.
Very well, thank you. And moving on to item 8, the Legislative Committee, Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. The Legislative Committee has nothing on its agenda for tonight. Mrs. Oquist, is there anything to add?
I think I stepped up to my soapbox earlier this evening, so I will refrain
Very
from-
appropriately so. Those words are
And
appreciated.
a wonderful job you did.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, let me flip the page. Oh, I flipped the page.
Slid that in there.
The horse is now dead, and I will stop eating it.
No, we haven't
No.
attended its funeral yet.
No.
Yeah, there will be just a tiny
Well,
bit
no,
left.
the horse is not dead, because do we really know what it looks like yet? Did we figure that out
No,
yet?
don't.
That's what I thought.
No, in the boilerplate, there are some changes there.
I know, because we're still discussing it. I'm okay, I'm good at discussing this.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, is there anybody else that has anything else that they'd like to add for tonight's meeting? Oh, Mrs. Jarvis does.
I just, I had to add this. This past weekend, there was an all-girls robotics competition that was held in Brownstown. It is the largest all-female robotics competition in the world. And our Livonia Warriors placed number 1.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
congratulations to the Lady Warriors, or the Athena Warriors, as they're calling themselves. It was amazing.
Thanks for sharing that, Mrs. Jarvis. All right. Well, with that, folks, we wish you a great evening. Tune in next week, next Monday, to our regularly scheduled meeting.
Yes, we will have our 3 high schools represented here, sharing in our point of pride about each of their peer connections programs. So Stephen,
Oh, great, peer connections.
the Patriots Relate program and peer connections at Churchill. We will have freshmen and senior students here. So we will have a full house, and they will have a wonderful presentation for you and for the community.
Oh, well, get ready. All our friends that are listening tonight, tune in next Monday night. All right, and we wish everybody a great evening. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.